And something of a departure from the original scheduled VPub for this week. It was going to be something to cover Islay and the Fèis Ìle festival that's happening right now on the island of Islay. I thought that would be an appropriate thing, and maybe to talk about festival bottlings and that kind of thing. I've collected a few Fèis Ìle festival bottlings over the years, but I don't have any from this year. So that made it a wee bit clunky. And not only that, back in March, I did the Peatfest for 2024 and focused fully on Islay. So I've already covered all of the distilleries that are operating on the island there. So I don't mind. I don't mind repeating subjects and things, but I decided it would be nice to switch it up a wee bit and talk about a festival that I have got the bottles on hand for, and I went to it for the first time last week. So that's what we're going to cover tonight, but not until we cover a topic that's very interesting to me and something that came up in the recycled review that dropped last week. And that is, of course, this Infinity Cask, the recycled cask project. I think it's going to be interesting to talk about that because I know it triggered a lot of you. Anyway, as always, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the VPub. Hope you're all doing very, very well. It's nice to welcome you back here because, of course, I was AWOL last week, wasn't I? I decided to take a week off and head down to the Campbeltown Malts Festival for the first time ever. And I have to say, it was fantastic and very worthwhile. And of course, you were looked after very well while I was away by the gentleman that is Jeff down at Jeff Whiskey. He got a great crowd together. He managed to hook up with Rob from Dram, with Menno, of course, Lord Asshat himself, the quizmaster extraordinaire. Jenny Carlson joined in, and cousin Kevin as well. Let's Talk Whiskey. All five of them got together and gave you a smashing wee respite space. Very VPub and feeling too, with the quiz at the end, of course. So I'm very grateful to them all. Jeff, thank you very much for hosting, big guy. You can have that wee seat anytime. Thank you all. Well done. Of course, I was in a state of merriment when I joined in early in the evening, but I was still, I think, okay. I was functioning quite well. And I was in a state of merriment when we all joined in for the quiz at the end last week too. It was great fun to do that. But of course, my elusive 10 out of 10 on a Menno quiz still is out of reach. I have to work harder. Maybe I'll get Menno on soon so that he can host a wee quiz at the end, and I'll have another wee chance to grab a 10 out of 10. But yeah, it was tough last week. The quiz at the end tonight, I guarantee everyone, it will be a wee bit easier. So of course, it should be clear tonight, we've switched up. We're not going to talk about Fèis Ìle. We're not going to talk about Islay. This channel, the VPub and everything, has covered Islay very, very well. I don't think we've ever had anything that's focused on the Campbeltown Malts Festival. We've done things that's focused on Campbeltown or Glen, Scotia or Springbank or whatever, but we've not done anything that covers the Malts Festival that I attended last week. So it just kind of makes sense, especially since I've managed to put together almost a full suite of festival bottlings. We didn't queue for anything. There wasn't a stramash. It wasn't ridiculous. You just basically went up to the stall that they were selling the bottles at. Do you have any left? Yes, we do. And you picked up your bottles. It was that easy. There's reasons for that, I think. Quite obvious reasons for that happening. And we'll talk about that when we get to it a wee bit later. But that meant that I didn't need to queue for anything, and I managed to get all the Springbank bottles. I got the Kilkerran bottle, and of course the Glen Scotia bottles available. Everyone. The only one I don't have is that there was, I think, at least one single cask being sold from the Glen Scotia shop on Glen Scotia Day, and I didn't arrive until almost. We had a tasting booked, and we just managed to arrive in time for the tasting. So we didn't really get anywhere close to having an opportunity to buy anything. special from Glen Scotia on Glen Scotia Day. So if there is one there that's been missed, that's the only thing that's missing. I've still got Glen Scotia's festival bottling here. And I've got a couple of other interesting things where Glen Scotia's involved too. So we'll get to that in a wee while. The other thing that kept you occupied last week, while I was down in Campbeltown, the Recycled Review was scheduled to go live just before the normal VPub time of 9 o'clock at night. And it went live, and that gave you a little kind of pre-VPub session to watch while you were getting ready for the Jeff Whiskey pop-up VPub. It was a longer Recycled Review than normal because of a project that I put at the front end of it. I need to address it. I need to address the comments. I've not had time to address all the comments. There's over 100 comments in there already, maybe more than that even. And I think I'm only maybe a third or halfway through them so far. Over the coming days, I will respond to all of them, I promise, because I do need to tackle some of the questions. Most of you were very, very lighthearted about it. In fact, all of you were very lighthearted about it. But some of you, I can tell, were a little bit triggered by what I did with that recycled cask. We'll talk about it. But before we get there, of course, I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Hope you're all comfortable. Hope you're sitting in a nice, comfy spot. I hope you're fortunate enough to have a dram in front of you. You don't have to, of course. You can pick this up and sipping whatever you like or sipping nothing at all. But it's nice, the intention here, even if you're picking up on the replay, if you are, welcome. Thank you for picking up on the replay. I hope you've got a chance to have something nice in the glass in front of you. Okay. Let's scroll back a wee bit further and catch some of you guys. Jonas Lind has joined the Aquaviti Barflies tonight. Jonas, thank you very much for your support, my friend. It's nice to have you as part of the Barfly team, keeping the VPub completely ad-free. Eric Cunliffe in Canada celebrating being a member of the Barfly for 36 months. I can see that cheeky Campbeltown glow all over you. Well, the weather didn't give us much of an opportunity to have a glow. So any glow that we developed over the course of those few days was fully from the gorgeous whiskies we were sipping and less to do with the gorgeous sunshine. There were good days during the week, but Springbank Day was particularly wet and cold. Kilkerran Day was much warmer and drier, but it was still a wee bit overcast. So the couple of days that we had there, we missed the sunshine. It was lovely sunshine driving home on Saturday, though. And Donner Pass Whiskey, Tim's in and he's bought me an early dram to say, as someone who has made a lot of blends and done a PX cask finish with 5 bottles in a mini barrel, I'm not triggered by the barrel, but very much want some when it's ready. Looks like you had a great time. That's fantastic, Tim. It's fantastic. And it's nice to see that you... It's nice to see that you're being pragmatic about these things and you're even practicing at home as well. We're going to have fun chatting about that tonight. Mikey is in tonight. Good to see you, Mikey. It's always nice to welcome you in the VPub. How you doing? He's saying evening, Aquaviti, and evening all. Scrolling down, I can see Service Alafis. Let's raise a wee glass for Service Alafis. That's my friend from Norway, Andreas, who celebrated his birthday this week. It's not today, but it was yesterday, I think. Or was it today? Was it this morning? Was it today? The days are all mashed into one. Regardless, there's birthday wishes that need to be said, and our pal in Norway deserves them. Andreas, many happy returns, my friend. Happy birthday, buddy. Service Alafis, I think it's the Latin name for red deer, isn't it? Hellswood is saying, evening, Roy. Good to see you, Helen. I hope you and Andy are doing well. And everyone, Chris is here saying, ahoy, malt mate. It's wonderful to welcome you in, buddy. I hope you're keeping well too. Rob Smith is saying, good evening, whiskey folks. Good evening, right back at you, Rob. And Danny Keenan is saying, good evening, Roy Aquaviti and all the barflies. Hope you're all well. I'm feeling well. Been working very hard this week. Lots of projects going on in the house and things. But yeah, we're squeezing a lot in, but feeling good. Gerben is here, Gerben Blocker. And in Netherlands saying that was a great pour. I would not have dared to do the same. Oh, I wonder what you're talking about. I wonder which dram you're talking about. And Tim Pills is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you, Gerben. Good to see you, Tim. Alistair Gray up in Speyside is saying, good evening, Aquaviti and the magnificent barflies. Get the wee cheers, Glen Cairn going on as well. Thank you very much, Alistair. Good to see you and welcome in. Des is saying, to infinity and beyond. I love it, Des. Good stuff, yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it all works out, right? David Larenko is here saying, evening, y'all. I managed to see David on a very brief video call this week. A wee video club or a whiskey club or a whiskey collective happening in Lisbon there between Seb K, David, and we also managed to see Bruno as well in that video call. So a few familiar barfly faces there, and it was good to connect and meet you ever so briefly, David. I hope you're keeping well. Ginger Genius, I met Ginger Genius down in Campbeltown. It was fantastic to meet him. He's saying Aquavita. Good evening, Roy. It was great to meet you and the boys. Next time, hopefully, we'll get time for a dram. That's right, so many folk, and I really do appreciate the people that come up and said hello. Some people we were able to dwell a little bit and spend some time with, but most of the time it was like, we called it human pinball. It was like just passing as we're going from maybe Kilkerran to Springbank or vice versa, or just walking about the town and bumping into people and passing. So it's only kind of a brief handshake and a chat and, oh, I hope to see you over the course of the days. And some people we did bump into multiple times, but other people you just kind of felt like, oh, I never get a chance to see them again. Ginger Genius was one of those. He's not ginger. Hope I'm not telling tales out of school there, my friend. But it was great to meet you. Whiskey and Wine Trails Thomas saying, great, Roy. Enjoyed watching the replay of Jeff's regional challenge video. Great conversation. Oh, that's fantastic. So I haven't been completely on holiday. I was live on air on Tuesday night doing the Whiskey Tubers kind of round table thing. This time it was hosted again by Jeff Whiskey. He's working hard right now, Jeff. And he brought together Sertu from the Whiskey Enthusiast channel in Turkey, Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey, myself, and Jim from the Whiskey Novice. And we were challenged with bringing a nomination for each of the regions, and we had to kind of face off against each other. No spoilers as to who the winners were there, but it was a good wee gamified session, very much like the gamified There Can Only Be 5 Whiskies that I did a few VPubs ago. And there will be another version of that coming up before the summer break. I hope you're looking forward to that. It was very good fun. Max Kreitner is saying good evening, greetings and hugs from the Kreitners. So good to see you, Max. Wonderful to welcome you in. I hope Christina's doing well too. Jerry Miller is saying Aquavita. Good evening, Roy. Thank you for all you do, sir. Fantastic. Thank you for being so kind about it. Just as the chat jumps right to the very bottom, let's scroll back a wee bit because I've missed a couple of things that have come in. Wife's orders. She says I don't support you enough for what I get from this group. A good husband follows orders. Jerry Miller, thank you so much for your generous drama, friend. And thanks to your wife as well. She's quite right, you know, of course she is. Cheers, Jerry. I hope to see you soon. That's funny. Jerry's been supporting me for a long, long time. It's wonderful to have you here, Jerry. And my friend in Canada, Gino Kumo, is in, celebrating being a member for 50 months. My goodness. Evening, Roy, 50 months already. Time flies. Yes. Barfly, time flies, certainly. Gino, wonderful to have you. And Barry Hislop spot me a generous dram saying, good evening, Roy. Pleasure to meet you after the Kilkerran Warehouse tasting last week. How good are those refill bourbon bottlings? All the best, and cheers, Barry. It was a pleasure to bump into you, and it's always nice when people step up and say hello. If you're here till the end, I think probably Kilkerran's probably going to be one of the last ones I get to, but you might recognise one of the bottles. Yeah, depends on which one I pluck out to share, Barry. Jimmy Legg is celebrating being a member for 51 months, saying, Jeff, you look strange without the flowered shirt. Aye, and no sunglasses as well. A lot less kind of magenta and things around the scene. I know that you've been enjoying Jeff recently. He's a great guy. He's got a great sense of humour, and he's got a very relaxed, natural, welcoming nature about him. And I think he's done a good job with the VPub last week. You never know if he's around in summertime and things like that. I might reach out to him and see if he's up for hosting 1 or 2 sessions over summer to keep everybody busy during the summer months. Sandro is here saying, ciao, everyone. Aquavita, looking forward to tonight. Grazie. Good to welcome you in, my friend. It's always great to have you here, Sandro. Michael Henry's in tonight. Fantastic, Michael. Good to welcome you here too. Of course, I'm going to be talking about one of your distilleries in just a wee minute. Service of Laughs is saying, thanks for the birthday wishes, Roy, and everyone. The big 40 yesterday. Oh, my goodness. Didn't even realise it was the big 4-0 as well, Andreas. You're doing well for a 40-year-old, my friend. I wouldn't have put you at 40 years. Fantastic. Chilling tonight, says the Ginger Genius, with a Kilkerran 16, Springbank 16, Springbank 16, that'd be a society bottling or something, and a Longrow 16 Ruby Port. Let the tasting begin. Right on theme as well. Fantastic. David is saying, still in wonder to have had that wee moment. Thinking back when we started to watch the channel, it was out of my mind that it would ever happen. You, sir, are a true gentleman, and cheers. David, I'm sure that we'll get a chance to raise a glass, not over a video call one day, but in real life, my friend, and I look forward to that. Cheers to you. Tremendous. Okay, let's get the chat on. Let's get talking about these things. Let's get talking about the Recycled Cask project. I hope I was clear in the recycled review. Obviously, it's heavily edited and things like that. There's kind of chops in it, what that is about. But let me tell you a wee bit more of the story. Let me let you understand a wee bit more of what happened. But the friend who donated this cask, I know that I've been alluding to who that friend is, but I'm just going to leave it for you guys to decide who it could be, or it could be somebody that you know, and maybe it's somebody that you don't know. But this friend turned up in a van and started to roll a cask down the driveway. Really funny to see. Rolled down the cask, said, "Roy, I've got this cask for you here." He explained the provenance of the cask, where he'd got it from. He told me what it is and what he thought about it. And he said, "Hopefully you can do something with it." And he left it with me. On another visit, the same gentleman turned up with a crate full of whiskey. So obviously I started to put 2 and 2 together and come up with about 6.5, I think. And I started to work out, because I have a lot of whiskey in the VPub. I really do have a lot. But I'm reluctant to throw it away too easily, or to use it for infinity projects and things like that. Why? Well, because it's a reference library for me here. So I'm going to keep a hold of all of these whiskies, because it might come up in a topic for the VPub or something. I might need to grab a bottle and use it and taste it and use it as a prop, whatever. It's nice to have that reference here. And also, if I'm tasting whiskies and I want to understand how they're contextualized in the whiskey scene, I've got other whiskies here as reference points and things, and it's good to keep it here. So I don't have stacks of whiskey. I don't have like half a dozen bottles of the same thing. It just doesn't exist here. Everything tends to be single bottles. So I didn't have a lot of whiskey that I could pour into an experimental cask. But it did plant a seed in my mind. So what I did is I poured some whiskey into the cask originally. The cask was smelling very fresh, very woody. It smelled very woody at the beginning. There was a whiff of whiskey from the cask. You could still smell a kind of dunnagey, warehousey whiskey note, but the whole cask was very wood spiced in aroma, and as you smelled it, but it smelled fresh. So I poured in some whiskey to begin with, somewhere in the order of about 3 litres, only 3 litres. And I'll tell you exactly what the whiskies are. I'll share it all with you tonight. After I did that, I put the bung in and I left it sitting there, and then I turned it a few degrees after. Sometimes it was just a few days, sometimes it was a few weeks, sometimes this went on for a month, and I was turning and turning. Eventually I turned it on its side, and I kept it on its side for a while, and then I flipped it over and turned it on its other side, and it didn't leak from anywhere at all. There were no leaks that I could see whatsoever, except for when there was liquid in contact with the bung. But that was obvious almost immediately. You only had to leave it for an hour or two, and you could see that the bung had started to kind of seep. It wicked the whiskey out. So it's coming through the cloth there. And also, I don't think the bung is completely tight. And if you try really hard and slosh it about while the liquid is in contact with the bung, you will get streaks of whiskey coming out and running along the seams. That was fine. You're going to store it bung up anyway, so that doesn't matter at all. In time, after a while, and I tried, by the way, I'll share with you the whiskies that I poured in, and I took a wee sample. It's very difficult to take a sample from a cask when there's only about this much liquid in the bottom of it. But I managed to get a sample out, just taking a few mils at a time with a copper pipe, and I tasted it. And it tasted weird. It tasted odd. It didn't taste anything like I expected it to taste. I'll tell you what I put in back in those original experimental days. I had a couple of open bottles, and 2 open bottles and 3 sealed bottles I poured in for my 3 litres. I had about a half litre of Arran Bothy. This is the old label Bothy, the tall round version. About half litre of that went in, along with about a half litre of the new version, the quarter cask. I ended up with 2 bottles of the new label quarter cask for some reason. So I used the one that had the most out of it, I think. So there's about a half litre of that went in. Then I added a sealed bottle. I opened a bottle of Glenfarclas 105 that I picked up on offer at Amazon for like £40, something really crazy. I put a bottle of Glenfarclas 105 in. I also got a great deal over winter time on a Scarabus Cask strength. I picked up a bottle of that was going quite cheap, and I put that in. And I also somehow had a duplicate of 2 North Star bottles, 2 11-year-old Inchgours actually. And I don't know how I ended up. I think I'd been just buying them, always like an Inchgour, and I think I'd bought it not realising I already had that 11-year-old, and I ended up with a duplicate. So I sacrificed one of those and I poured that in as well. That was and some nice whiskies there, really nice whiskies. And I know that a lot of you'll think, this is horrendous that he's taking these good whiskies and just throwing it into a cask. But the people that are thinking like that and saying these things are not thinking it through, I don't think. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So you can see I've been leaning towards higher strength, higher ABV whiskies to put into that cask. But I didn't want to pick expensive things. I didn't want to risk it in the beginning. Anyway, when I took a sample from the cask and I tasted it, it tasted a little bit like none of those whiskies that I put in. It tasted a little bit spicy and a little bit odd, a little bit unsettled, a little bit... I just didn't know what to make of it. I really didn't know what to make of it. It made me nervous about putting any more whiskey in the mix. Fractured would be a good word. All over the place. It almost had a kind of sandy... it's difficult to explain the texture. It was like splinters or sandpaper, or there's something weird about the texture of the whiskey. Very woody, perhaps. So I left it and I just decided I didn't know what to do with it. I was eventually, when I was up at Dornoch, Phil and Simon Thompson, we were talking about infinity bottles and all of these things. And I talked about the demijohn that you see behind me regularly at various, I suppose if you've been watching the VPub over the years, you'll see this demijohn full of dregs and things and heels and samples that I don't know what they are. Everything goes in there. And gradually it'll fill up. You'll see it getting higher and higher. I guess you've probably been unlikely for you to see the level of that drop, because if I drink from that, I'm only pouring 1, 2, or a maximum of about 3 drams at a time to give to people to let them try it. And again, this often tastes really drinkable and quite good at times, but most of the time it tastes a wee bit odd. It does taste like it needs a wee bit of work at times. But if I'm leaving it in an inert container, it's not going to change much. I'm going to leave it there for a little while, and once it's kind of married together, that's it. It's going to kind of it's going to tail off quite a bit in how it changes over time. It does change over time. Even if it's in glass, it's chemical soup, whiskey will change, absolutely. However, as I was emptying some of the bottles on the run-up to this last recycled review, you could see in the video, I almost filled this. Fresh in my mind was a suggestion from the Thompson brothers that maybe you should consider an infinity cask. And I said, well, I've got a blood tub right now. It's only got a wee teeny bit of whiskey in it, but I just don't know if the cask's, what the integrity is like, if it's going to be any good, if it's going to work out well or whatever. And they just said, look, if it smells good and if it tastes good, it's good. Just go with it. It makes perfect sense. It made perfect sense to me. Why am I waiting around? Why am I being cautious? Why am I being nervous when there's fun to be had here? So, as well as finding good whiskies, decent whiskies that I could put for some further maturation in my own personal wee blood tub, I decided it would be good to add in the demijohn, all of that here, and make some space indoors for dregs and heels and whatever else that I may find that's appropriate to go in there. But also, I had this crate of whiskey from the same person that gave me the cask, with no suggestion of using the whiskey for that purpose. But a lot of the whiskey that I put in at that cask, guess what? It's already here. That a lot of it was duplicate bottles. The ones that weren't quickly made it into the collection here, and the ones that were duplicates stayed in the crate for that purpose. It's very peat forward. I'd already added some peat in the Scarabus, but I decided that if I was going to make my own one of the things about using peat in an infinity bottle or whatever, you need to be very judicious with its use. If you use too much peated whiskey, you will very, very make a peated blend. 5%, 10% peat, just add it a little bit at a time, because you can very quickly just kind of render your infinity bottle a peated infinity bottle without much effort from peat casks at all, or peat bottles at all. Smoky whiskey. Be very careful with it. But from the get-go, I want to make a very peat-forward, outdoorsy style of whiskey. I can see that a big red banner has appeared here. Our friend Wook has appeared. My goodness, it gets more and more generous. Quite incredible. I feel like I need to have something amazing in the glass in order to raise a wee glass for the gratitude here. I'm going to give that big likes and love and raise a glass for the very generous. I was very, very pleased to see the same support from all of you and Wook on the pop-up VPub last week as well. Wonderful to have the support. Cheers to you, Wook. Thank you. Quite incredible generosity. I keep saying it and I will continue to say it in the future. I hope that you're finding something of value here, my friend, and I hope that all of this generosity is very comfortable for you. He's also gifted 50 Aquavitae memberships that's now been allocated to all folks in the lounge. Fantastic generosity. Anyway, so yes, I decided to just either go for a peated style or stay away from peated altogether. But when you're making a Scotch whiskey infinity mix of whatever, there are just so many peated expressions that are so tempting to use. So this time around, from the get-go, I said, I don't care how much peat I'm going to put in this. If I make it peat on top of peat on top of peat, and then a mix of some other things in there too, let's just go. Let's just see what happens. If I've got an infinity cask sitting there maturing and it's a peaty infinity cask, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I'm quite excited about it. So that's what I did. If I put crap in, I will get crap out. Maybe if the wood does some magic, I'll get slightly better crap. If I put average stuff in, I will get average stuff out. If the wood does its magic, I'll get something that's maybe slightly better than average, if we're really, really lucky. If I put good stuff in that cask and the cask does its magic, I will get something that's better than good potentially out of that cask. This should be plain for everybody, easy to understand. Good blenders can take average whiskies and make something that's greater than the sum of its parts. I'm not a good blender. I don't have 10 casks to experiment with. I don't have a blending lab to sit and be very, very careful and very thoughtful. What I'm doing is a function of the sheer amount of whiskey that I have and the point in my whiskey journey that I am at. I'm ready to give up this whiskey and play with it. I'll never fill that cask. There'll always be headspace in that cask in order for me to add things and take it in a direction if I think it's moving in a direction that's not good or not desired. I might be able to add other things and pull it back a little bit. Things to brighten it, to freshen it. Things to reduce the peat, things to increase the peat, things to make it deeper or richer or more earthier or whatever it may be, whatever direction I want to take it in. That is the plan for this thing. And so, what happened? After you'd seen me putting in fairly pedestrian things like Islay Mist and maybe standard Talisker 10, which is very, very often on ridiculously cheap offer right now in Europe, you saw me then move on to putting in a couple of real precious bottles. The first one was this Glen Talkers, Single Malts of Scotland, Glen Talkers 19-year-old. Now, this has been in glass for a long time. This was bottled back in March 2017, and the vintage is October 1997. Glen Talkers If you were to describe Glentockers to anyone, there's no way they would get through a sentence of describing Glentockers without saying fruit. There's a very, very fruit-forward, like the fruit really pops in Glentockers. Sometimes it can be orchard fruit, sometimes it's more citrus. Regardless, you're going to be talking about fruit if you sip a Glentockers. This is fruity and it's fizzy, but it's also, despite the 52.9% ABV, it's also a bit hot for Glentockers. I think the ABV is a wee bit too forward for this bottle. That said, a wee teaspoon of water and a dram of this, and it just pops with that fruity Glentockers profile. Fantastic whiskey. I knew immediately that I wanted to dress the mix. I wanted to add some top notes. I wanted to add some fizz. This was the obvious candidate. I don't have another bottle of this around. This was a genuine sacrifice, if you like. But it's only a sacrifice in the sense I'm not pouring it down the drain. I'm not pouring it away. I'm not pouring it even into a mixed drink or a cocktail. I'm pouring it into something in the hope that can add. It can be a multiplier, something that enhances the mix. I still have that liquid. It's just part of something else now. You were probably okay with me putting in the Glentockers, but it did trigger some of you. The one that really triggered folk, it's very interesting to me, is Glendronach. I put in a fair chunk, about half a litre of 1990 single cask Glendronach. Now, the specs on this is a Pedro Jimenez Sherry Puncheon, 647 bottles from this puncheon, 23 years old, 1990 vintage, so 23 years old, obviously. October 2013 is the bottling date for this. This has been around for a long time. People went crazy. The kudos laden, because it's a Glendronach single cask, people are going, oh my goodness, because of the price that this whiskey is today. The price of this whiskey back in 2013 was not that much. This was an inexpensive bottle back then relative to today's prices. Relative to 2013, it was pricey. However, I was curious about this bottle, single cask PX Glendronach from 1990. Yes, please. Poured a dram of it. Oh my goodness, what on earth is this? This bottle was so cask forward, it was a caricature. It was, if you wanted to let somebody have an idea what oak tastes like, you might be tempted to pour a very oaky bourbon in today. If you had this on the shelf, this is what you'd pour. This, a dram of this was like fudgy furniture. It was like chewing wood. So cask forward. The PX syrupiness, the sweetness was still there. There was a richness. There was a decent texture to it. There was wood spice, lots and lots and lots and lots of wood spice. It was all here, but it was all kind of... I struggled to get through a dram of this, let alone pour a second dram. That said, this type of liquid with those type of traits, I'm hoping can potentially add benefits to a greater thing, a bigger mix. When the comments started coming in on the recycled review, everybody's going, I needed to go for a lie down in a dark room, one of the best comments there. Oh my goodness, seeing that Glendronach. But some people were genuinely suggesting that it was wasteful. So I started to panic a wee bit and thought, oh, maybe. And I went on to Whiskey Base for that specific bottling. And I found the Whiskey Base score for it, and it was particularly high. It was about 86, 87. People seemed to like it. And there was quite a few votes in there. That said, I think there was only 2 reviews at the time. One of the reviews pointed me back to a Ralphie video. I kid you not. And they mention in the Ralphie video that Ralphie reviewed this very bottle and talked about it in a weird way, scored it 81 out of 100 and threw it on the floor. I've never seen Ralphie throw whiskey on the floor in my life, but he did. I went back and watched the video and he threw it on the floor. And this is where it's uncanny, unbelievable to witness. Ralphie said that he's going to use the bottle to blend it with peaty malts. great minds and all of that, right? It's destiny, serendipity. It was meant to happen. That was meant to go in to help something else. If I put crap in, I'll get crap out. If I put average in, I'll get average out. If I put good in, hopefully I'll get good out. Because if I do it in any other way, it's potentially just going to be a mess. And you know what I would really like? What my goal for this cask is? See, when I meet people at festivals or events, people are coming in and out of Glasgow, and that cask has had time, and I'm not speaking about months here, I'm speaking about years or more. If that cask has actually turned into something that's really quite drinkable, I think the story behind it, I think the whiskies that I'm going to choose in the future to put into that will all be on theme. And I think I'll have something to put into people's hands, sample bottles, just put it into their hands and say, here is a wee bottle of the recycled cask. A completely unique thing, a unique gift, something that's generated partly on behalf of the community, by the community, that I can give back to the community in future. Unless it's really good, and then I'll keep it just for myself. I'm only kidding. I hope that it's good. I hope that it works out. We've just got to roll with it and see. If it's a disaster, you'll hear me go quiet on it. You'll hear me not be excited about it. And maybe one day I'll just have to confess that it didn't work out. If that does happen, if it turns out terrible, I promise you I will share it with you and I'll tell you. And I'll tell you why I think it's terrible. Anyway, yes, I have sampled some. I took a wee sample after I came back from Campbeltown, so it'd only been in there a week or two. And I'll let you know, this is the first time I'm trying it. It's only a half bottle, but I didn't fill the bottle. It was just put enough in it. So this was drawn on Recycled Whiskey Cask. First draw, 27th of May. Let's have a wee nose as I jump into the comments. I won't taste it quite yet. Okay, let's put a wee lid on this. Jump into the comments and see what you're all saying about it. Thank you, Wook, for your huge generosity, my friend. Thank you so much. Daniel Williams has also bought me a dram. You star. Good to see you, my pal in the Netherlands, Daniel. How are you keeping? Wubba lubba dub dub. Remember to like the video. Fun comment. Daniel, thank you very much, my friend. Superb stuff. I'll need to tell you what's in this glass as well. I've been sipping as we set up. Cheers, everyone. And thank you, Daniel. Juice Terry, good to see you, Juice. He said you would need to get hold of some new made spirit for your cask, ultimate curveball. Well, that's interesting because it is still whiskey. I mean, I don't know what kind of whiskey it is right now. Everything that I've put in it so far is definitely whiskey, not necessarily any particular style of whiskey. You know, there's going to be some grain in there. I'm not going to be too uptight about it. I'm just going to put in whiskey. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, so cask size wise, do you mean your cask is of 30 to 40 litres capacity? I think it's a 40 litre. Careful with aging time then. I've tasted several McMira ones. Yes, because it's a smaller cask, I will need to keep an eye on it. David Hall is saying a calculated punt. Somewhat calculated. I mean, not calculated on any kind of knowledge or experience. Maybe not even real inspiration. A wee bit of inspiration, but calculating it based on low risk. Hopefully low risk. Jimmy Legg is saying, add all the sherried whiskey you want. I need to add a wee bit more. The Glenfarclas 105 that I put in was very pale. There wasn't a lot of sherry going on, I suspect, although I didn't try any of it. It just the seal broken on it and straight in. Late to the party, Jeff's here. Evening Aquaviti and all. Jeff, you're probably too late to hear me raising a glass and saying you thank you very much for your great efforts. Not just on the YouTube roundtable on Tuesday night, buddy, but also for looking after us all on the VPub last week, the pop-up Jeff Pub. I've suggested that if you're up for hosting a session or two during summer, it might be fun for us to talk about that. And Philip Wagner is here. Good to see you, Philip. He's saying, good evening, everyone. Hello, Roy. Try to pick up to see if there's any comments on the cast. Doc's here. Good to see you, buddy. McCallum Fennery says, hi, Roy. What would be your guess regarding the ABV of your cask's current content? I'm afraid it will be on the low end for proper maturation. Oh, absolutely. And we have to remember here, I am not maturing whiskey at home. This is an infinity cask. So this is a wee bit like having an infinity bottle, or indeed my demijohn at home. But rather than just keep it in inert glass or decanter type whiskey bottles or something, I'm actually putting it into wood to see if the wood can affect it somewhat. So this is not a maturation thing. We're not trying to make whiskey. We're just using a cask for our infinity liquid. So it's just pure fun. I would guess that we're probably in the low 50s. I hope that we're at above 50, but we're of that order. Optimal is supposed to be somewhere in the order of 60 to 65, but there's lots and lots of people out there, especially when the wood is expensive. They fell straight off the still without any reduction at all, so it's much higher. Andy Purslow is saying, good evening all. Slightly late at Lakes Tasting at Nichols and Perks. Good stuff, Andy. I hope you're feeling good, and I hope you had it. I noticed that Lakes is up for sale now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Quite pricey liquid at times. I hope that it was good. Let us know what you thought of it. Ginger Genius is saying, it's your whiskey to do with as you please. I'm sure you'll share the results, good or bad. I will. I promise I will. Tim is saying, had samples of 3 similar casks thanks to Keith from the Malted Man Cave. Oh, is Keith still going? Amazing. Pretty unique stuff from the old cold fire stills. Is that you talking about Glenfarclas, I wonder? Everyone is saying, you have clearly embraced chaos theory, my friend. I'm sure it will taste great. It will taste great if we have a chance to share it. I'll do my very, very best, but I'm only going to share it if it's good, of course. Justin Wan is saying, Aquaviti, surely Ralphie wouldn't give you a cask and a bunch of whiskey to do stuff with them. I didn't say Ralphie. Did you hear Ralphie or Justin? I don't think you did, buddy. Justin Leg is saying it's potentially going to be a mess no matter what you do. Potentially, yes, exactly. Black Fen is saying, sounds like Oz or groupthink. Okay, somebody else hinting towards Ralphie as well. Sandro Fazzolari is saying, are you serious? Remarkable coincidence with Ralphie review. Remarkable coincidence. It's uncanny. Oops, it's jumped. Sorry. Was that Sandro I was speaking to there? Inverurie Whiskey Shop, good to see you, Mike. He's saying, evening, guys, good to see Roy back in the studio, not at all jealous watching the frolics of last week's party. It was brilliant. It really, really was fortifying. Good for the soul. Mike Molasses saying, not the least bit triggered by an infinity bottling. Of course, I'm still recovering from the shock of a new recycled review. Very much enjoyed it. Yes, fair point, Mike. Fair point. But you saw all the bottles on the driveway there. So you know that despite there being a lot of blanks and indies and duplicates and things, it's not relevant for a recycled review in those baskets. There should be enough for me to put together a summer recycled review as well. Mel is saying, I can't wait till you sit down and try the cask, maybe together with Ralphie. Oh, well, if Ralphie's interested in tasting it, then absolutely. We'll see. Herben is saying it's like a football team. You'll never succeed with 11 players that are all the same. Difference brings synergy. Herben, I love the analogy there. Doc is saying, oh, okay, I did already catch that one. The chat's gone crazy tonight. It's a bit weird. Donna Pasquist is saying Glendronach. The Glendronach. Okay. Sachin Kent, good to see Sachin. We all know it's Ralphie. Oh, you all know it's Ralphie. Well, you have to be careful with assumptions. Don't assume. Ian Bruce is saying, good evening, everyone. Do you have a standout experience from Campbeltown, Roy? I'm going to share it tonight. Absolutely. Scotch in the Bayou is saying a sample of the Infinity Cask would make for a crazy blind challenge sampling. And I suspect, Leanne, you would be able to pick it out. Lee J, Whiskey Liberation Front is saying, Roy, I think it's fantastic what you're doing. Just makes me want to get hold of a barrel myself. I don't doubt that it could do that, babe. Suddenly, there's going to be a huge market for blood tubs and people looking for cool, dark places around their properties to safely store the bloody thing. You have to be very, very careful with all of that. Frederic is saying, even if it's not turning out that good, stick a wick in it and have it as the Aquaviti Infinity candle. Friedrich, I love it. So we've got a plan C there, right? We've got a plan C. Dave Barnes is saying, sorry, late to the party. Just back from a night out with Soho Whiskey Club. Lots of people out at tastings tonight. Dave, I hope it went really, really well. Excess to Scotch is saying, the man with the crate was a man in a bothy. That's absolutely true. I did say that. He was also a man with a van. and a man with an empty blood tub cask to give me. Whiskey with Molly saying, enjoying the what whiskey, Ben and Sherry, 50% Ben Rinnes and 50% Glasgow single malt. I got to try a wee nip of that when I was... No, I didn't. We chose the other one. We chose the Peat Smoke on Gorgie. Another one of the worst. I've not tried that one yet. I'm glad you're enjoying it, but it sounds great, isn't it? Glasgow mixed with Ben Rinnes. Perfect. Justin Wan is saying, pretty sure Ralphie has nothing to do with it, guys. Ralphie never blends or plays with these whiskies. That's right. Fernando is saying, I love to see you using samples from that cask in future VPub's blind tasting session. See, everybody's thinking along the same lines. And Brian Cabayas is saying, good evening, Barflies. Peter Dram is a great sauce for an Infinity collective. I have a good Infinity bottle in my collection. So I think we're all a wee bit chill about it. Let's see how it's tasting, okay? It's got nice colour already, right? It's quite a nice wee colour there. So the Glendronach has added a bit, maybe the Glenfarclas. There weren't a lot of dark whiskies that went in. It's still got that same... I might need to be careful. I might need to get more liquid in it because it's nosing very wood spicy. It's got quite a lot of char on the inside of that cask. If you just put your finger in and kind of rub it on the inside, your hand comes out really quite dark, quite black. Yeah, it's making me think of a wood shop, a woodworking shop. Wood shavings, pencil shavings, sawdust, that kind of nose. There's a wee bit of a toasted element. Like a slightly overdone toast. Not burnt, but just kind of dark toast. It's quite buttery. Toast and butter. Malty. Kind of a lot of the kind of Arran. Okay, it's not. I don't think it's brilliant. It's very peat forward. Surprise, surprise. It's very smoky. It's got a wee ashy element to it now as well. It does taste a wee bit youthful. I'm suddenly not nervous about leaving it in a cask for a wee bit longer. It could maybe do with a wee bit more wood elements on the palate, if I'm honest. It's a wee bit raw. Tastes a wee bit raw. A wee bit jaggy around the shoulders. There's not a lot of ABV on that. I might need to keep anything that I add. I might need to be careful that I'm maybe adding higher ABV stuff. I think Doc makes a good point. The ABV is going to be the first thing to leave us, right? If I'm maturing or if I'm storing it in a cold, damp place in Scotland. But it's remarkably drinkable. I shouldn't be surprised because I'm not putting in garbage, right? I'm cautiously optimistic about that. I'm going to put it to the side for a wee bit. I expected it to be a wee bit rough. It's better than I expected. That's a positive thing. It still needs a wee bit of kind of time. I think it needs to come together a wee bit. The nose is very kind of like somebody's literally cutting wood. Aye, it's wood shop on the nose. Not on the palate though. Soft peat on the palate. And a wee bit of cold ash on the finish. Finish isn't bad. Short to medium finish, but nice. Be amazing to see how that develops. David Hong in the States. Good to see you, David. So nice to welcome you here. Has bought me a wee dram as well. No comment or anything, but I'll raise a wee glass and say thank you very much. Cheers, my friend. So there we have it. That's our Infinity cask project, and that's my first reaction. I have to say I'm quite pleased. It's okay. Johannes is saying, catch the rest on replay. Good night to you all, and the barflies. Johannes, thanks very much for dropping in early tonight, and I hope you enjoy picking us up on the replay. Johannes, thanks for picking us up on the replay. Welcome back, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Justin Man is saying, please add some E150. Of the whiskies you poured in already has some, but I can tell that it will benefit from more. You want me to colour the cask? Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, did you rinse the cask prior to filling, or was it already filled a bit? I didn't rinse it at all. I didn't rinse it at all. I don't think it needed it. If it's a refill cask, if it's already had Scotch whiskey in it, I'm okay with that. Gerben is saying, if the wood keeps being prominent, I would suggest Alba Vitae as a pet name for the cask. Good one, Gerben. I like it. Alba Vitae. The recycled cask is because I'm recycling whiskies. That's what I'm doing. I'm recycling whiskies. And by the way, can I just point out that I am sure the irony of me coming up with a project in order to take care of all of my dregs has actually produced dregs. Is not an irony that's lost on you, right? but these will get drunk. These will get polished off. We're finished. These maybe get mixed together to see how they mix together. Anyway, but yes, I'm recycling whiskey. That's the kind of take on it. I can get you some E150 to pimp that boring colour. You can choose E150 A, B, C, or D. Well, I've got E150A, and I think I brought this out on the session that we had the other night. Why is this kind of shaped like that? Well, it's been sitting on its side, so the liquid is on its side right now, but it was for a long time sitting upright, but it stained the glass black, absolutely stained it black. And this is it's not an amber coloured bottle. You'll be able to see at the base here. This is actually a clear glass bottle. And if I take the cork off this, it often gets stuck on like it's glued. It's horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. I hate handling it. Maybe you can see the top as well. This is actually clear glass. Horrible stuff. This is E150 caramel. And if I was to hold that upright, it would take a long time for that liquid to settle down. It's gunk. So no, none of this will be added to my cask. I want to give it the best chance I can. Scotty Mac 4, that's a new name. Scotty Mac 4, wonderful to welcome you in. But my very generous dram, get a wee like and a wee love heart to that as well, and say welcome in, Scotty. It's nice to have you. You've obviously been around for a wee while, judging by the colour of your barfly. Cheers, Scotty. Maybe it's a name change. And Carlos Sanders as well bought me a dram to say, Carlos wants a dram of that 1990 Glendronach. Well, there's maybe one dram left in it. Trust me, buddy, it's not great. Thank you to Carlos for your dram, and thanks to Scotty Mac 4 as well. Cheers to you both. All right, what am I sipping? Well, before we get into the distilleries, we're going to obviously run down to Campbeltown now. I mean, we're only 50 minutes in, right? But before we go around the distilleries, we've got 3 distilleries in Campbeltown now. We've obviously got Springbank, Glen, of course, Glen Scotia. I'm going to pick up this bottle. Now, it was available for the festival. I took it to be a bit of a festival bottling, and they were selling it at the festival. We were able to buy it at the festival, but it's since kind of disappeared. I understand that it may be going through, there may be enough stock of it out there for it to go through a public launch. But the first thing I picked up from the festival was a blended malt. This is quite a cool blended malt. Now, before you talk to me about the aesthetics of this quite clunky bottle, have a look at the graphics. The graphics are actually pretty cool. And you might notice a theme here. This font is a very familiar typeface in the UK. This is the font that's on all of our road signs in the UK. If you visited the UK, you'll be very familiar with it. If you live here, be even more familiar with it. It's on the back too. They've also got a road sign mock-up on the back telling us that this is a blended Scotch malt whiskey that's blended from all the current Campbeltown distilleries. And it's a collaboration between 3 independent bottlers. You can see here Little Brown Dog, Watt Whiskey, and Stirk Brothers. Natural colour, cast strength, non-chill filtered written on the back as well. All good stuff. No barcode or anything, so I can't imagine that this is going through general retail. Maybe it might. Maybe this is just a festival bottling. But it's a 7-year-old blended malt. So that means it's got whiskey in it from Glen, Scotia, from Springbank, and from Kilkerran, from Glengyle. I happen to know that the Glen Scotia in this is 7 and 8-year-old Glen Scotia. There is some 16-year-old Kilkerran, some 12-year-old Springbank, and some 21-year-old Springbank. Now, how much of the Springbank and how much of the Kilkerrans has been added to this blended malt, I don't know, but they wouldn't say it's in there if it wasn't in there. This is cracking value. This is not festival bottling prices here. This is a cask strength blended malt Campbeltown whiskey for 55 quid. We bought it while we were down there, and this got cracked in our accommodation, and the first few drams that we had was enough for us to go out and make sure that we got ourselves a bottle to take home as a souvenir. So the font as well on that, the wee Broon electric Q, I should probably explain that. Little brown dog, wee Broon. Electric is obviously watt whiskey, watt as in obviously not volts, but watts, measuring power, right? And Q is Sturck Brothers, David Sturck. Sturck is obviously cattle. So wee Broon electric Q. This is a very cool collaboration. It's not just a collaboration of, because let's face it, the distilleries aren't going to get together and say, let's do a festival blend, a blended malt of the 3 distilleries here. Let's work together and collaborate on this. I would love to see that, but it's not likely to happen. But it is a collaboration in the sense that they've used the 3 distilleries. But what's amazing, it's not a single independent bottler doing this. This is fantastic. This is 3 completely different independent bottlers getting together and saying, well, I'm just dreaming this up. This is probably what's happened. I've got this stock on hand. I've got this stock on hand, and I've got this stock on hand, and getting together going, well, why don't we see how it blends and try and blend together something that we can release for the Campbeltown Malts Festival? That's what this smacks of to me, and I think that's fabulous. This is kind of amping up collaboration. Collaboration, whiskey thrives on collaboration. It really, really does. And I think the bigger a brand gets, the less likely it is to reach out to any other brand or pretend that there's any other whiskey out there. And I think at that point, something of the magic of whiskey is lost. The symbiosis, the kind of mutual support, the cask trading, the idea of all in it together is something that exists very much at the heart of whiskey, at the production of whiskey. However, once it becomes a brand, that's very, very quickly lost. So to see independent bottlers with their own individual brands getting together to produce a product like this, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really cool. And if you kind of could push that forward and imagine how a route like that could go in the future, it could be an amazing thing to see. Let's roll back a wee bit. Whiskey Liberation Front, Little Brown Dog, absolutely Legie. Lots of people love the stuff coming out from Little Brown Dog. A lot of people loving the stuff coming out from What Whiskey. Not a lot of people know what's coming out from Sturck Brothers as well. Have a look at Sturck Brothers. I think it's just sturckbrothers.com. Some gems on that wee website. Auction flippers will be upset watching Aquavitae, these bottles being opened. They will be opened tonight. There will be, this is not anything to do. All the whiskey I bought is for drinking. So nothing is going to see auction, not this time around. Whiskey Weekend Dram is saying, hi Aquavitae, a little bit late, but I've been to Campbeltown 4 weeks ago. Did you taste some cage bottles? I picked up a cage bottle here. It's Noah brought it over here in case I open it. I picked up a brand new thing, an exciting thing, a cage bottle that happens to be a Kilkerran. They've got Kilkerran in the cage now. So I picked up a heavily peated Kilkerran. The age on is 7-year-old from Warehouse 7. Refill. Oh no, it's fresh bourbon, heavily peated fresh bourbon. One of the staff that works there that loves his whiskey congratulated me on picking that one up. It was incidental. It's just what was in the cage when I was there, so I bought it. And he said, he reassured me that it was fantastic. Anyway, this is what's been in my glass tonight. The Little Brown Dog that I've been sipping away. And I've been thoroughly enjoying it. It is fully driven by the Glen Scotia spirit that's in there. There is a kind of depth to it. There is a kind of nice richness to it, but it is very reminiscent of that kind of really, really buttery, salty, malty Glen Scotia. However, I want to reassure everyone how amazing that is. The Glen Scotia tour that I did back with a team from Dramface and everyone back in 2022, the last dram that we had was the youngest whiskey that we had all day. Our parting dram from that tour was from a cask in the warehouse at 6 years old. 6 years old. It was a 2015 cask. It hadn't reached its 17th birthday yet. Sorry, 7th birthday yet. And it was the whiskey, it was the one I wanted to buy a bottle of, and you couldn't. It was still in cask. So creamy, so mouth coating, so buttery, so textured, so coastal, so salty, so just so good. Glen Scotia have really dialed it in the last 10 years. And the whiskey that's coming out, especially young Glen Scotia right now, bodes very, very well for the future. And I think that wee Broon Electric Coup embodies that. But for me, that embodies the fun of collaboration more than anything. It takes water brilliantly. Don't be afraid to, if you picked up a bottle of this, see how you can bring it alive and get the fruit to pop and things with big scooshes of water, teaspoons of water in it there as well. It really does. 58 point something percent ABV, 58.8% ABV. So there's scope here for independents to get involved in festivals, to bring along their contribution, to get whiskey enthusiasts excited about their take on these event whiskies too. So it was kind of cool to see that. I hope that the people behind this wee Broon Electric Coup manage to find a way to retail that soon. Jason Whiskey Wise is saying, I love Glen Scotia's first fill bourbon or refill. Great liquid. Absolutely spot on. The stuff that's coming out recently, it just seems to be getting better and better. The future is bright. So let's talk about Glen Scotia then. Let's talk about that. What do we do? What do we go for first here? I've got a choice of 2 bottles. Let's keep the independent theme going here. Let's talk about a bottle I picked up on the last day, which was the courtyard day at What Whiskey. What Whiskey have got premises there in Campbeltown, and they've got a wee courtyard out the back, and they invite along some other players, some people that are setting up distilleries there, some people that are independent bottlers, just kind of a mix of other people. Bring along a table, bring along a gazebo, and just share drams in this tiny wee back courtyard. We left just as that was kicking off, just as it was building up, and I felt sad to walk away and leave it. Despite the fact I'd enjoyed 3 days down there, I wanted to stay. It seemed like it was going to be fun, but we had to come home. We had to come home. Anyway, not before I picked up a souvenir bottle from Whiskey Sponge. Decadent Drinks had a stall down there, and they were selling this, calling it the Glen Toon. I love the branding on this bottle. I think it's excellent. This is unblended pot still wee Toon malt whiskey, distilled in 2012 and bottled in 2024 at 11 years of age. So it's exactly as Jason was saying, exactly the point I was making. This is quite young. Glen Scotia, 11 years old. It's not quite young. It's a good age at that point. But one of 225 bottles matured in a first fill bourbon hogshead. It does say hogshead here, which is interesting. 53% ABV. Special edition for the Campbeltown Malts Festival. Obviously, a Glen Scotia whiskey, calling it the Glen Toon. Let's get this opened. It was not cheap. This is Decadent Drinks. This is Whiskey Sponge. Often a wee bit pricey. Can be really pricey. But I don't have a Decadent Drinks or a Whiskey Sponge bottle on my shelf that isn't anything other than outstanding. So, pour a wee bit in the glass. It's a neck pour. I always have to caveat the neck pour thing. It's a first reaction. It's not a review or whatever. But, you know, a neck pour, whiskey gives up quite a lot from the first pour of the bottle. Let's have a wee nose before we let it sit for a minute. Oh, a lot of richness in here. Didn't expect that. Honey. Warm maple syrup on pancakes and some pepper. Oh, wow. Okay, let's leave that for a wee second. Just stuck a 53% whiskey right up my nose, but that's okay. Should recover. See what you guys are saying. Justin Wan is saying, how many bottles did you end up from the festival? Well, I bought this. I bought the Broon Electric Q. I brought a set of Springbanks. I bought I might have bought an extra Kilkerran. And I also bought a full set of warehouse tasting Kilkerrans as well. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my goodness. 12 bottles. There you go, 12 bottles. I bought 12 bottles. Thanks, Justin, for making me realise just how much I brought back. But of course, it means I get a chance to sit here with you tonight and share them. Whiskey Weekend Dram Harrow saying, I saw the Kilkerran peated, but jumped on a Springbank bourbon, tasted a 13-year-old Kilkerran sherry cask with locals. That was amazing, fantastic. And I bet you the Springbank bourbon that you've picked up is a belter as well. Ellswood is saying, enjoying a Glen Scotia Victoriana at the moment. Still a classy dram. It is indeed. In fact, my last Glen Scotia Victoriana, oh no, there is a wee bit still up there, but there's also a bottle in the recycling, or no, is that it behind? No. There's a bottle in the recycling. Remember, I had those two that I was comparing together that had opened at a similar, or not a similar time, but I was drinking them from two different batches. But I'm now down to the dregs of my last one. Was Angus there? I don't know. I didn't see Angus there. I didn't see Angus. Angus, he's talking about Whiskey Sponge Jim. He's talking about Angus McRailed. He might have been in the town, but I don't think he was. I didn't bump into him. Marcus Christensen is saying, just tuning in quickly to say it was great to see you at the Malt Festival. I've got work in the morning, but we'll make sure to catch us on the replay. Great fun was had on the Friday evening. Fantastic, Marcus, as always, buddy. Yeah, I see you're a barfly too as well. It's wonderful to have bumped into so many good folk down there as well, especially you, my friend. Cheers to you. This is not a cheap whiskey, but this is a good whiskey. There's a real kind of so much happening at the same time. But it's fruit, it's powered by fruit. So the honey and the maple syrup and things I was getting in the nose, wee bit of that there, a nice kind of warm sweetness around it all, but just green fruit, green. There's lots of green in this whiskey. There's a kind of herbal, ridiculously long. I've only had one sip of this. Like almost a sagey note or something, or something. Green, what are those green fruit, the peach, the green gauges? There you go. Stone fruit as well. Peachy. Apricot, peachy. So fruity. But there's almost like an Armagnac or like a cognac, Armagnac type fruit note to this. Like in Germany, they have a drink, and I wish I could remember what the fruit was, but they serve you the liqueur after your meal with the fruit in the drink. It's reminiscent of that. This is amazing. There was a dram of this poured at the Glasgow Whisky Club, but I didn't get to go to the Glasgow Whisky Club on Tuesday night because I had a prior engagement with Jeff and the team over on the Whisky Tube Round Table. So I was just dropping off bottles and leaving again. And I had the car outside, so I couldn't drink. But I got to stick my nose in this. There's no way in that environment it gave up what it's given up tonight. That's a cracking, rich. This is first fill. It's got to be first fill. Yeah, first fill bourbon, hogshead. Cracking, rich, super fruity, very amped fruit. Glen Scotia. I haven't talked at all about salt or coastal or all the other things that we look for on our Glen Scotias, right? Nice spice on the finish. Pepper. But it's light. That's just... I paid 95. I think it was £95 for this. £90, £95. But for a sponge bottling at cask strength, that's actually affordable. Anything under £100. They do a lot of their kind of what is it? The solstice bottlings. I can't remember what they're called. Where they reduce the ABV, so half of the cask has gone out at perhaps cask strength, and then the rest of the cask is reduced a wee bit to make it a bit more affordable. If they're a Ben Nevis like that, I've got it over there. It's a cracker. This, it's difficult because whiskey sponge decadent drink bottlings tend to be a wee bit pricey, but they tend to be a wee bit curated to a wee bit special. This is one of the best young Glen Scotias I've ever tasted. I genuinely mean that. Neck pour, I have to caveat it with it. It's a neck pour. I don't know how much of it is still available, if it's still available. There's quite a dry finish to it there too, a wee bit of black tea and things on the finish. Berries, dark berries. An orangey thing. It's just... Look, I'm going to put it to the side and come back to it. That's so excited to have that. And I've not even started on the official bottlings yet from Springbank or Glen Scotia. That's a cracker. I'm really, really pleased to have that. I'm really pleased that I picked that up. That was like the last bottle I bought as well, as I left for the day. Anyway, summer and solstice. Is that what it's called, Lowlander? Summer and solstice. I think it's something. Equinox and solstice. That's what it is. I knew it would come to me. Equinox and solstice. Jimmy, like I said, it seems to me that if whiskey sponge is involved, the whiskey almost always brings a tear to the eye. Well, I think he's kind of... And I think they're going to stop once they reach release 100. I think they're going to wind it up and stop, and whiskey sponge will be no more. It seems weird that that's the case. 12, surely Wook's generosity helped for that. 12, absolutely. Wook's generosity. Greg, all of your generosity helped with that. And of course it did. It absolutely did. And Whiskey Veritas, good to see Oliver. He said, never had a decadent drinks bottle for reason of price. However, if they're all excellent, maybe I'll have a go. Or is it just that you have chosen wisely? Well, you know, decadent drinks are very active in getting the liquid out there. They're at festivals. They like getting liquid on lips. So if you're in an environment where maybe a retailer is hosting a thing or something, I don't know. Hopefully, Oliver, there's opportunities, because it becomes difficult when it is a certain price point for you to just spend your money. I understand. It's always better to try before you buy. I think this is £95. I can't remember what I paid. 95, I think. If £95 is a comfortable purchase for you, I appreciate that's a lot of money for a bottle of whiskey. I think it's a lot of money for an 11-year-old whiskey. It really is. But this doesn't sip like an 11-year-old whiskey. There's complexity here. There's richness here. There's elements to Glen Scotia that I've never happened across before. I think it makes it an interesting whiskey. I think it makes it, in 2024, the market that we're in today, what I've just tasted in that glass is every inch a £95 bottle of whiskey. Anyway, let's get into the official take from Glen Scotia. This has been sealed here, waiting for such an excuse to get it open. There's still liquid of this. This is still available out there because Glen Scotia do it right. I did suggest that there was at least one single cask being sold from their shop for the festival, but their official festival release out turn tends to be widespread, wide availability on the run up to the festival, during the festival, and tends to hang around after as well. They want to get the liquid out there, so the outturn tends to be very, very generous. And it changes every year, and it gets quite interesting. What's happening with my camera tonight? It looks like it's swinging up and down when it focuses it. No, it seems to be working fine. So it switches up every year. This year, they've put out a 9-year-old 56.2% ABV cask strength, unpeated liquid in a Fino sherry cask finish. Now, Glen Scotia are famous for finishing rather than vatting, because almost all of Glen Scotia gets put into first fill bourbon. It gets filled into first fill bourbon. And certainly in recent times, the vast majority of it, what they're going to use for single malts at least. So that means that when they want to, when they're approaching events, or they want to bring out something different or whatever, they start to play with whatever fresh, good quality wood that they've got, with a view to releasing it for future releases. That's the way I understand it anyway. And in this festival release for 2024, what they've done is they've put it in Fino casks for a minimum of 6 months. I know that it says a minimum of 6 months on the label. It says it on the, maybe it's on the box here. I'm quite taken by the color of this box as well. Does it remind you of anything? It's absolutely identical to my purple recycled bin. Missed out on a collaborative opportunity there, Glen Scotia. So a Fino cask this time around. This is a huge vatting though. Thousands of bottles out there. It should be available everywhere. 65 quid. Great value. Great way to release a festival bottling to include as many people as possible. People that get to the festival, yes, but people that can never get to the festival too, and everyone in between. This is stone fruity as well. And this is also reminiscent of something green as well. Herbaceous even. More herbaceous than... This is even more herbal than this sponge Glen Scotia. Got some green notes from that, but this is very green in contrast to the two. My goodness. So that kind of sage, tarragon, all those kind of dried kitchen herbs. But just to get the green note, I've obviously jumped ahead. I've gone a wee bit ahead. There's a nice sweet, orangey, orange oil maybe. And a wee bit salty. It's Glen Scotia. I'm always looking for it, but it's difficult to smell past. It's almost like flaked green herbs. If you've ever added, if you're doing it like a white sauce or a chicken sauce or anything, and if you add tarragon, even tiny amounts of tarragon, it really brings a lot. It turns everything green, right? That's what this nose is a wee bit like. Maybe that's the Fino. Fino can be quite a strange thing. Great mouthfeel, great texture. Oh, wow. Quite floral on the palate. A bit of bitterness coming through, a bit of acidity. Nose and palate really quite different. Thick, viscous. Quite a departure, quite a step change. Very different flavors in here. Very floral. Mouth-watering, juicy. Drying, acidic, sharp green apple skin. A bitterness on the finish, really bitter. Not lemon, like a olive bitter, olive oil even. And the viscosity makes you think of oiliness too. Wow, I've never sipped a Glen Scotia like this. There's not much difference between these two in terms of age. 11 years old, the sponge bottling's a wee bit, got a bit more age to it. It's quite a notch darker as well. Not too much. I don't know if the camera is going to show that up. I would probably have to get a piece of white paper to show the difference in it. But the sponge bottling's a wee bit darker, maybe those extra 2 years. Sponge bottling says hogshead. This is going to be from first fill bourbon barrels and then into the Fino casks for at least 6 months, a bit longer maybe. But these are remarkably different malt whiskies. Not so different in ABV, 56 versus 53. The price, this is a huge outturn, huge scale outturn. 65, 60, sub £70. And this one, 2 years older, £95. Which would I pick? Wow. Listen, it's hard. This is really hard. This is a bright, dry, slightly bitter take on Glen Scotia. Very, very different to me. Neck pour, exact same as the sponge bottling. And the value is fantastic. I don't know. It's hard. I need a bit more time to decide. I think the sponge bottling is just an obvious banger right out the glass. Oh yeah. Objectively very, very good whiskey. So if you're used to a super salty, super rich Glen Scotia from previous festival bottlings, whether it's been the Bordeaux, I think it was white port, last year was last year's white port. This is a different take. If you're a wee bit like me, where you like dry, slightly acidic, interesting whiskies with those sharp peaks in them that always make you want to go back for a second sip almost immediately, this is right up your street. Super interesting. They couldn't be much more different, despite on the bottle specs how similar they are. Obviously, one's got a finish in Fino casks, but all the other specs in terms of ABV, age, distillery, remarkably, remarkably different. The stuff coming out from Glen Scotia in recent years, we've said it already tonight, we continue to say it, we are going to be looked after in Campbeltown. We really, really are. And that's before we start talking about all the new distilleries that's down there. Glen Scotia's making more and more whiskey all the time. They're going through an expansion right now. They're going to be making even more. And I just hope that they continue that trajectory, because it's just fantastic stuff. Truly is. Danny is saying, nice haul. Hope they're all decent, which I'm sure they will be. Aquavitae. Danny, I'll share with you. Most of them tonight, we're actually doing quite well. No, we're not. We're getting through time. I'll show you my bottles, okay? And we'll move on to, I'll take this away as we move on to the Springbank set. Springbank have obviously got 3 brands. They represent all 3 brands in their festival releases. They've got Springbank, they've got Hazelburn, and they've got Longrow. These are all wrapped in tissue. I hope I'm about to unwrap the right ones. It's fine. So, this was very, very good value this year round in terms of being able to buy the set. It was just a little over £100, £115, I think, for the set of all 3. But you may have already spotted all 3 are or 35 cl bottles. Some people are triggered by that. Some people like to have the 70 cl bottle. Some people like to have this thing that goes with the rest of their whiskies. It's the same scale, it's the same size. They've got a 70 cl bottle and they can keep it. But 70 cl bottles have a habit of being kept as souvenirs. 70 cl bottles have a habit of being kudos laden for secondary market. 70 cl bottles don't go as far as 35 cl bottles. I personally would prefer 70 cl bottles. But if I'm able to come back from the festival with a full set of all three releases for 100, excuse me for the noise. There's going to be a lot of tissue noise tonight. For £115, that sways me, because I'm not buying to put on a nice display to have an ornament. I'm not buying to have something that I can't actually have because I want to keep it intact in a nice big pretty bottling. I've got something, I've brought something back from the festival that I'm going to open and drink. This is the Springbank Festival release. 10 years old, super interested in this one. Fijian rum cask, 57.1% ABV, 2,200 bottles. If this was a 70 cl bottle, the maths tell me that 1,100 bottles it would have been. There were still bottles available. I didn't need to queue for them. If they were 70 cl, would that have been the case? Probably not. I'll open this as quickly and away from the mic if I can. The white tissue is, okay, I tried this. I actually tried this at the festival. Sevi opened his bottle and shared it with everyone. This is Longrow, and this is a 16-year-old ruby port at 54.7% ABV. Look at the colour. 16-year-old Longrow. And it was an absolute cracker. We had to be polite and not empty Sevi's bottle. It was wonderful. Last of the Springbank set, I think. Hazelburn. This is a bourbon in Oloroso. 8 years old, 52.8% ABV. Again, 2,200 bottles. The same bottle count on them all, so they could be sold easily as sets, of course. I was going to hold a poll and ask you which of these three I should be opening to share. But I think I'm going to go right ahead. And I've tried the Longrow. I'm curious about the Hazelburn, but I'm especially curious about this Springer. So let's get this Fijian rum Springbank open. Oh, I like it. The wax is connected to a wee fabric ribbon. Very easy to open for a wax seal. I like it, Springbank. Well done. And I suspect that, listen, if we're here and we've got lots of time later, you can maybe tempt me to get Toon into these two as well. So we'll put them off to the side for now. I suspect that, given the shape of this bottle, it's going to make a nice wee glug. I've never been able to participate in Springbank Festival, Campbeltown Malts Festival bottlings in the past, whether it's from Springbank, Glen, Glen, Scotia, whenever. Most of the time, you have to travel down there. In the past, when I had the ability to travel at the end of May, I was going to Islay. I've managed to make the Fèis Ìle about 4 times, I don't know, 5 times maybe. And it's been fantastic to go over to Islay for the Fèis Ìle, but this year I really wanted to focus on Campbeltown Malts Festival. When the opportunity was offered to me, it was Sevi that came up with the opportunity. I was desperate to get there, really desperate to try it out for the first time. And I have to say, I would absolutely in a heartbeat go back again. It's really hard to get accommodation, really difficult. A lot of people are traveling in from out in the countryside and much further away, but it's just such a fantastic atmosphere and vibe in the town. Really good. We have to eat takeaway as well because it's tough to get in a restaurant. Oh, we're on a theme tonight. These kind of green, much more herbaceous kind of notes. Wow, I wonder if is that the rum? Fijian rum? What's a Fijian rum? What does it, how does it differentiate itself from any other rum? I would suggest that given this is a 10-year-old Fijian rum casks, I think being Springbank, that's probably full maturation in Fijian rum. But this is very green again. Sweet apples, cooked apple. But I'm in a greenhouse. There's lots of, there's maybe even a wee bit of, maybe not greenhouse, but is it resinous, like a pine note? Tree sap, pine needles. Good grief. Look, I appreciate that the bottles, these even if they're 35 cl, 2,000 bottles, seems like there's a lot of them out there. The chances of people getting a hold of this is very, very slim. They're going to be snapped up, despite the fact that they're very plainly labelled. There's no kind of gilding of these bottles whatsoever. These are put in glass purely as a vehicle to get them in front of people who want to crack them open and drink them, but still, there's a lot of people going to be saving these things as souvenirs, as ornaments, as objects, things that they have that they can't actually have. This is drinking liquid. The density of Springbank spirit is obvious at first approach. 10 years old. My goodness. There's only one or two rum casks I've ever had in my time that I really enjoy and connect with. Rum can be clunky, rum can be difficult. One of the best rum casks I've ever had was also coincidentally a Springbank. You remember that mint green labelled rum cask special edition that came out? It was a cracker. This is a cracker. This is just a cracker. We don't even care about the age statement on a Springbank. If it's put out there, we know that it's been put out there because they've decided that it's good. Are all the whiskies I sip tonight going to be bangers? I suspect yes. It's going to be one of those VPubs, folk. Oh my goodness. I had some drams on Tuesday night's session when we did the VPub, the YouTube roundtable with Jeff, hosted by Jeff. And that was the first drams I'd had since the festival weekend. And I realized that I'd had my break, I'd had some time to reset and things, and I was enjoying my drams on that night. But just had a few sips of each of the five that I'd chosen. Tonight, I am so enjoying these whiskies. So enjoying whiskey. I remember a time when I was at the festival last week thinking, when I get home, I think I want a week away from whiskey. I want a huge break, because you're sipping at tastings, you're sipping during the days, you meet people and you're sharing whiskies and talking about whiskies. You go into another tasting and then you go in and you share some more. Then you go back to the accommodation and you kind of want a wind down dram and you want to you don't want the day to end, so you pour another dram and things. By the time you come home, you're like, okay, I'm whiskied out. I've had enough. Then you sit here and you open the souvenirs that you've brought back. Whiskies like this, everything is reset. Whiskey is magical. Absolutely magical liquid. Incredible flavor, incredible texture, incredible just everything, triggering all your primary senses, reminding you exactly what it is to be alive, right? It's just fabulous. Brian Cabias is saying, Fijian rum is very acetone forward type of rum, less molasses impact and very oaky, in my experience. It's good to have you in, Brian. Not being a rum drinker, having literally 2 bottles of rum in the entire VPub. I'm proud to say that, well, one's owned by Diageo and the other one is Foursquare. So I'm glad that you can taste the difference between the two. But my knowledge of rum ends there. So it's good to have your input. Acetone, though? There is a wee kind of a... I don't know if I would suggest acetone to this. No, I think it's sweet, but green. Maybe everything I'm going to taste tonight is going to be green. It's going to taste herbaceous, right? Just so thick. I think it's difficult to sip Springbank and focus on things outside of the glass. I think it's happening here right now in front of you guys. I think it's when you're in a social situation and you're sipping something like this, it's just so you'd fall into the glass. It's very, very tricky. Whiskey Weekend Drum Harrow saying, remember that mint drum was great. Okay, that's the Springbank. It reminds me of a bourbon. When we say mint, we're talking about the colour of the label, right? Nothing to do with taste notes. Reminds me of a bourbon matured Springbank, and now looking forward to the Kilkerran 20 rum casks at Aquaviti. Well, we might be able to share some very lovely Kilkerran soon, Harrow, this very session this evening. In fact, I think it's about time that we moved on to it because I'm burning through. I do have a VPub quiz at the end tonight, and it's a good quiz at the end. It is on theme, and I hope it's kinder to everyone than Menno's quiz from last week. Danny Heaventon is saying, a litre of whiskey from Springbank for a little over 100 quid isn't bad at all. Well, actually, it's not a litre. These are 35 cl, right? These are 35 cl bottles, so it's half a bottle. So I think the way it worked out, the Longrow was the expensive one. But if I'm right, in fact, I'm going to tell you what the prices were. I was double checking the prices earlier in the week. And I thought that I was surprised. Okay, so the £115. So this bottle of Springbank, 10 years old, cast strength £35. The Hazelburn was an 8-year-old, £35. And the Longrow, 16 years old Longrow, Ruby Port, £45. Fantastic. There was an expensive release, relatively speaking. And I think it's about time that we move on to that now. What do you think? Ginger Genius is saying, how does the Ruby Port 16 compare with your Madeira 16? The Madeira 16, so I've not compared the two of them together. I've not opened my... Sevi opened his Longrow. I haven't opened mine yet. Maybe I could open it tonight. Then the Madeira's there as well. But from my memory, the Ruby Port was much darker, much kind of jammier, much kind of dark red fruit forward, whereas the Madeira is quite still quite intense and dense and things like that. But the Madeira is much more kind of baked goods and lighter, spicier, brighter type notes. But you know, you might convince me to compare the two of them. Maybe tonight. Maybe it's be good to do that another night, right? Maybe we'll have a Longrow session. And Brian is saying, I got triggered by the Ruby Port Longrow, 16 years old as well. Those look good, Aquaviti, says Ben Whiskey with Molly. They are, buddy. They really, really are. I hope you managed to get yourself a set. And Hoyt is saying Ralphie is a fan of Foursquare. He very much is. He does. Ralphie and I have talked at length about Foursquare in the past. Right, let's move on. My producer of the year is of course, it's over my shoulder here on the shelf here. It's got a section completely dedicated to it. Glengyle, Kilkerran. Fabulous malt whiskey, fabulous liquid. I don't care how it comes out. I don't care what cask it's in. I don't care, what strength it's at, whether it's peated, whether it's unpeated. The liquid that's coming out from Glengyle is right up my street. It's stunning to me, absolutely stunning. I love it best when it's at its lightest. Probably the pinnacle for me was the first release of the 16. So many people felt it was just so subtle and quiet and things, but just loved that bottle so much. Still got a wee drop left. I'm going to keep it. It's precious liquid. Gorgeous stuff. So when I saw the cage bottle of the Kilkerran 16, obviously I grabbed it. But what's amazing is that in 2024, we are now 20 years in to the Glengyle experiment, right? We're 20 years in. There's 20-year-old Glengyle whiskey. I remember eating in a Chinese restaurant in Denny called Cotton House, the Cotton House, and there was somebody who worked there. It was a Kilkerran fan, and they gave me a sample of Kilkerran work in progress, and it was the first time I'd ever tried Kilkerran at the time, and I must be going back to 2012. I don't know. It could be earlier. It was very early, and it was the first time I tried Kilkerran, and it was wonderful. It was magical stuff, and it immediately had me excited about the future. Little did I know, as soon as the core range started to come out in 2016, how much I was going to love getting on board with Kilkerran. Put it in a port cask, put it in a really active sherry cask, put it in a quiet bourbon cask, put it in anything, and it just seems to be amazing. Of course, I am probably hyping this thing up, but I'm going to open this tonight. So excited about this. Haven't tried it yet. This, I believe, this black tissue bottle, I should mute the mic for this. I think it's this year's Kilkerran. It's wrapped in the opposite direction. I think a left-handed person. Open day 2024, single cask, 20-year-old, 49.2%. So this is the open day release for Kilkerran. Can you believe that? A 20-year age statement on a bottle of Kilkerran. Kilkerran Open Day 2024, specially bottled for Campbeltown Malts Festival to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the opening of Glengyle Distillery in 2004. This Kilkerran single malt Scotch whisky has been matured for 10 years in a rum cask, followed by 10 years in a refill bourbon hogshead. Distilled April 2004, bottled April 2024, in strength 49.2%. 432 bottles, 432 bottles only. Glad to get one. Believe me that if it was 70 cl bottles, that would mean that there's 200 people, at least 216 people, that wouldn't have got a bottle that has a bottle. Fantastic. This one's getting opened. So it's quite interesting, right, that they started in rum casks and then they re-rack into refill bourbon. These are opening brilliantly as well. So cool. So good to have a wax seal that opens as easily as that. I hope that people are out there are actually opening their bottles. Oh, good. 20-year-old Kilkerran. So this is, some people are calling it dematuration. Normally what happens is it goes into a bourbon cask, a refill bourbon cask, first fill bourbon, whatever it is, and then it goes on for further maturation and something a bit more active, a bit more flavor forward, a bit more something to switch it up or change it up. But what's happening here down in Glengyle is that, and it's happening at Springbank too, is that when it reaches that point, that the cask that it's in is had its time, it's done what it needs to do, and it's at risk of being too dominant. They're doing what is just surely an obvious thing to do. Take it out of that active cask and get it into some refill bourbon. Refill bourbon, right? Put it in refill bourbon. And then what happens is the cask steps back a little bit, lets the whiskey have its time, lets the environment have a bit of play, and gives it time to come on a bit. Half of its life has been in rum casks. The second half of this whiskey's life has been in refill bourbon. This is a fantastic, fantastic moment. All it needs is for this whiskey to be good. It can't be anything else other than good, surely. I'm going to put a wee cover on that. Smells amazing. Amazing. How are you all doing? Fernando's saying, don't worry about the paper noise. Sounds like you're on Chris, a gift opening. It is like that a wee bit. I didn't think about the tissue noise, but I could always mute the mic, I suppose. Jason Whiskey Wise is here. Still here, Jason. I need to head off, but we'll catch up in the morning. Thank you, Roy. And good night, Jason. I hope you do catch up tomorrow and figure out what I think about this this wee Kilkerran. I had the 50-year-old Kilkerran rum cask Aquavite. That was amazing. Still have some left gifted by the same local guys. Fantastic Harrow. That's good. Justin Wan is saying that is the Cask C thing they use at Springbank. Is that what they call it? Hopefully I'm getting that jargon right. Cask C. I'm not sure. I've not heard it referred to as that, but I know that this is happening a lot. So when they feel like the cask has had its time, they're moving into something a bit more quiet, a bit more Springbank-like. Sorry, a bit more, I don't know, Scotch whiskey maturation-like. That's maybe a better way to put it. Also, the 15-year-old whiskey had 10 years maturing in the rum cask, just like the sherry port, etc. from 15 releases. So it might have been the same parcel. This might have been the same vintage as this. Why is my... Okay, I'm going to need to refresh my chat. It seems that it's frozen on both panels. This happens sometimes, so I have two panels open so that if one freezes, I can go to the other. If it's not freezing, it's jumping. Quick refresh. Pop out the chat. Apologies, I'll be right back with you. Here we go. Okay, that's working now. Okay, I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, maturing in the rum cask, fantastic. Justin Wan is saying, I think they call it third fill casks, cask C or C casks, with ABC referring to first, second, and third fill. Perfect. And Sandro is saying, is this the first time that they have had rum matured, then bourbon matured? I don't know if it'll be the first time, but it's the first time that I'm aware of it. First time I've heard of it. First time I've tried it. It's the first time I've had a 20-year-old Kilkerran. Dark, rich. I don't know if I'm picking anything up that would make me think of rum. Maybe, yeah. This is 49.2%. I was going to say it's nosing very, very rich and soft. Gorgeous, thick, dark honey. Might even go with kind of beeswax notes and things. Kind of freshly polished wood. Very almost like a treacly molasses type dark rich nose. There is age. You can smell age here. It's a weird thing to say, I can smell age, but when we talk about whiskey, we know we can. I've loved Kilkerran. I've loved it from the get-go. I've loved it from the beginning. I've loved to see it grow. This quiet little distillery that's part-time, only runs for 3 months of the year, somehow manages to not only put out absolutely banging whiskies, but of all the J&A Mitchell single malts, it's the one that we tend to be able to buy. You can usually go in and find Kilkerran on the shelf. Well, you're much more likely to than Springbank or perhaps any other brands. This, obviously, you're not going to get a hold of on the shelf, but it's just fabulous whiskey. When you consider, if there's truth in that story, and I believe it to be true, that Glengyle was brought back to life purely to preserve Campbeltown remaining a region. 3 distilleries were required because there were 3 distilleries in the lowlands at that point, despite the fact that they were down to a single distillery in the lowlands at one point. 2 distilleries, Auchentoshan and Glengyle, most of the time, but Bladnoch was operating as well, which made it 3. That was a region. The lowlands remained a region. And in order for Campbeltown to stay a region, not only did they have Glen Scotia and Springbank, they needed another. So apparently, Glengyle was brought back to life. They bought over the buildings, renovated the whole site, went through, it took years to get it right. It took years to get it done. If that is an act of belligerence, that is the kind of belligerence I can get on board with. Because the liquid that exists today because of that act of belligerence is immaculate. I think I'll just finish the VPub. I want to drink nothing more. This just, all of the whiskies tonight were inevitably going to be very, very good. I didn't expect it to be good to the point where I'll be struggling to hold it together. It's just stunning. And what's worse is that the only other one I've got to uncork here or unwrap is another banger of a Kilkerran that I have already tasted. And I already know how good that is as well. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram. The thing about Kilkerran is that I don't know how they do it. When you see how they make Springbank, you see why it's different. Glengyle looks like a regular distillery. What magic is happening there? I think it's so much to do with the floor maltings. I think it's so much to do with the canny experience that's built up over years of that, the people that are working there in a very remote part of Scotland, a very isolated part of Scotland. It's much easier to hand down and hand over the know-how from one experienced set of hands to the next. I don't know. I hear you, Jimmy, because you walk into Springbank and it's a veritable museum. You walk into Glengyle and you've got this very linear operation where you can see from mash to distillation. You can see the process all under one roof, and it feels a much more modern, contemporary layout. And yet they're still able to produce liquid like this, and they're still only operating 3 months of the year. Floor maltings, floor maltings, floor maltings. Now, I know that not all the Kilkerran malt is produced with their own floor maltings. Heavily peated sometimes is. But this rum, the cask that it's come from is almost incidental. It's just gorgeous whiskey. How much did I pay for this? This was a lot of money. A 20-year-old Kilkerran, it was £140. £140. But it's emotional whiskey. Justin, when I say you don't even need to hand over, it's literally the same people. Often that's true, absolutely. It's when I'm talking about the Springbank team, I think that's what you're talking about, Justin, the Springbank team moving over to operate at Kilkerran. But it's when they're bringing on more people from the local community to work there, they're picking up the exact same ways of working that's always happened there. Danny Hebbington is saying, "Oh, Roy, I've spent years to try to get hold of Kilkerran 16. Now there's a 20-year-old and your expression is making me want even more." Okay. I'll see what I can do for you, Danny. I'll get you a wee sample up there. It's mind-blowing. I know you're local to me, buddy, so it's possible. Drew from Arizona has bought me 2 drams. Oh my goodness, he's bought a duplicate dram. I don't know if you intended, Drew, but thank you very much, my friend. You're always so super generous. So enjoyable seeing you try these festival bottlings, Roy. That's a sheer privilege, honestly. It's a tear-shedding moment. It's just fabulous. Kilkerran, Glengyle, in my mind, still seems a young distillery. It's almost like when somebody talks to you about, they say to you, you know, I'm talking, it's where I am in my middle age, right? They say to you, oh, 20 years ago. I kind of, when I think about 20 years ago, I'm in the 1990s. And then I realize that that's sometimes in excess of 30 years ago they could be talking about. It's amazing. 2004, Glengyle came on stream, celebrating 20 years. I think it was March 2004, so they're clear into their 20 years. And this is some of the first liquid they produced. As part of the celebrations, they had a specific Glengyle Kilkerran warehouse tasting that we had tickets to, went along to it. Was utterly fabulous. Bang, bang, bang. 6 drams. Every dram kicked it out the park, and they finished on, I believe, it was a young, I think it was 7-year-old, heavily peated Kilkerran. It's a weird thing to do after all these bangers. You know, there's a 19-year-old out there. There was all sorts of things. They finished on a heavily peated, and it stood up strong. It was so elegant. It was so gorgeous. This is from the warehouse tasting. Forgive the tissue unwrap here. And this is going to be my dram for the quiz at the end tonight. Oh, Jesus, I'll end up losing it. Drew, thank you very much for your generous drams, my friend, and thanks to my pal Jimmy Legg as well. If I pour another dram after the stream tonight, it's going to be that open day. Rum casks, I don't care what cask it's from. This was my pick from I bought a full set of 5 of these. There was 5 that we could buy from the 6 in the tasting. The Madeira cask one wasn't available to buy, unfortunately, because it was another banger. But my pick out of the 6, notwithstanding the Madeira cask, was this one. 54.7% ABV. This is Kilkerran from the warehouse tasting. April 2005, bottled May 2024. 19-year-old spirit. Let's have a wee palate refresh here before we open this one. Just an amazing experience to go down there and spend a few days. Great to get into the tastings. Definitely great to get into the tastings. If you can get in the tastings, fine. If you don't get in the tastings, don't let that put you off going down for the festival. Doesn't matter. You're going to have a great time just kind of hanging around and getting to meet other like-minded whiskey folk as well. I don't know if we'll be there next year. I would love to go there next year. But I know that if I get the opportunity to go again, I would be there in a heartbeat. This is my quiz at the end dram. I've tried this whiskey, even in my whiskey fog that I was walking in the days that I was down at the Campbeltown Malts Festival. I was able to taste how exceptional this one was in that lineup of 6 whiskies too. And this is why I love. I saw the words refill. It's refill bourbon, didn't matter what it said, refill hogshead or refill bourbon or whatever. I saw the word refill there. I knew 19 years refill. Come on. This is the purest take on Glengyle's spirit that you can have. This one was also expensive, £80. So that would work out for a full 70 CL bottle. If you would have to buy 2 of these, so that would be £160, obviously. £160. It's expensive for a 19-year-old, but it's the quality of this liquid takes everything else that's even pretending to be worth that and just wipes the floor with it. It is so good. This is suddenly bright and shiny and fizzy, and the saturation's been turned up. We're now in yellows and oranges. This is clean citrus, but there's age here. There's something that hints. How can it be? How can it be that when it's in a refill cask for 19 years? What's bringing the age? Just time, just patience. A very quiet dunnage note, very distant, dusty dunnage note. It's a wee bit biscuity, custard cream, lemon, sherbet. Elegant, so elegant. Cheers, everyone. All the other whiskies in the VPub for the foreseeable future, until these 35 CL bottles are drained, are going to have a hard time getting any attention. Maybe it's because I'm fresh off the back of the festival last week, but I don't think so. I think it's because all of the whiskies that I've opened tonight are bangers. And there is competition happening in Campbeltown. There really is. They are trying to make the best whiskey they possibly can. So any neighbour that is currently there or has to be there in the future is going to be setting up their stall to make the best whiskey they possibly can, because they know who their neighbours are. Their neighbours are currently being celebrated as some of, if not the best whiskies on the planet right now. So if you're going to set up your stall in Campbeltown, you better bring the best whiskey you can possibly dream up. And that, for us, is drinkers who are happy to grab these wee bottles. I honestly, I don't care if it came in a ceramic jug. I would be buying this whiskey because it is absolutely sublime. The future for us as drinkers, as enthusiasts, as lovers of the liquid, as chasers of flavour, is very, very bright. And it's thanks to events like the Campbeltown Malts Festival, but it's thanks to producers who care. That's what makes the difference. Justin Ryan has bought me a wee dram, you star, in Hong Kong. Why are you still up, Justin? It's so late for you, buddy. Flights and accommodation just confirmed literally a few minutes ago. Glasgow Whisky Festival trip is on, in case anyone wants to see an Asian face other than Peter Lee's. Justin, it would be wonderful to welcome you back in Glasgow, my friend. That is very good news. We love for that, and I like too, and a cheers to you, Justin. I'll see you in Glasgow, my friend. And not for the first time, eh? Peter Lee is saying, just home. I hope you had a, you must have heard his name. Just home. I hope you had a great time in Campbeltown. I got to watch the recycled review and it was brilliant. What have I missed tonight? Me almost shedding tears by simply sipping whiskey, Peter. It's incredible, incredible. Thank you, buddy. Wonderful to welcome you in. I hope you and Denise are doing well. And thank you very much for the generous dramas. Whiskey with Molly celebrating being a member for 32 months, saying thanks for everything you do for us, Roy. Thank you very much, Ben. Very kind words. Thank you for everything that you bring to our community as well. And Dave Barnes is also celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 24 months. Thank you very much, all of you, for your tremendous support. My goodness. I think I want to just, can we just skip the quiz at the end tonight and I'll just sip these whiskies until I've got a busy day tomorrow as well. My goodness. So good. So bloody good. I think did I miss a dram there? No, I got it. And Greg in Paris, good to see Greg. You're saying you're making us dream a lot tonight. Hey, Greg, if you're ever here, if you're ever passing through, do you know what I'm going to do? maybe that Kilkerran heavily peated cage bottling or something like that. I think I've already got a Peter and Denise Lee bottle behind the bar at Bonaccord. Usually I've got something there. I've got something that I can share, something that's difficult for people to get their hands on. So if we do get a chance to meet up, even for the briefest of handshakes, the briefest of dram shares or whatever in Glasgow, it's not, I know it's difficult, certainly difficult for me. There's so many people coming through Glasgow right now, but there is an opportunity for us to, it will happen in the future for us to be able to share a dram. Danny Keenan has bought me a wee dram as well to say, great VPub, Roy, nice to see some special whiskies opened. It's just a shame that we don't have a way to, I mean, vicarious enjoyment is one thing, right? But it can only go so far, Danny. Thank you very much for your generous support and dram, all your kind words. Cheers. But honestly, I'm opening all of these special whiskies tonight, these things that you have to be at the festival probably to get, or you have to pay through the nose through auctions to get, and I understand all of that, but we have to remember that the core ranges that these producers are putting out every day, you're going to be able to buy this. You're going to be able to buy this cracking whiskey for a long time into the future. Whatever market that you're in, look out for this lilac bottle. It's going to be available, and you're going to be charged a fair price for a cracking whiskey. I'll even go as far to say that this expensive £95 sponge bottling is an absolute banger, Pour it against anything else of a similar price, and I bet you it can go toe to toe. We've got great value here in the blended malt collaboration project, the wee Broon Electric Coup. It's amazing to see. But if you want a Glen Scotia, just to get your head around of what Glen Scotia is, how about this one, the double cask? 46% ABV. The one I'm holding up to you right now, very deliberately on theme tonight, is the rum cask edition. But the reason I brought it to you tonight is that this is natural colour. This is what whiskey looks like. This is a fully natural Glen Scotia. This is regularly on offer. It's great value, and it's a banging, very coastal take on Glen Scotia. If you are lucky enough to happen upon a Springbank 10, I know it's difficult, but it's almost a buy on site. But please don't overpay. The distillery doesn't see that money. The distillery doesn't get it. It's people taking chunks and abusing the supply chain. Don't do it. Buy it on auction and get it shipped to you. It's a much better way to do it. You maybe pay a wee bit more on auction, but not much, and then the shipping fees and things, but you'll still get it cheaper than the local gougers to you where you are in your market. Here's the standard Hazelburn, and another excellent product at 46% ABV, very often ignored. Here's another. This is often on the shelves, honestly. It's almost regularly available these days. Longrose peated non-age statement, but it's made at Springbank from their own malt floors, peated in their own kiln, double distilled in their own still house, and both distillations goes through a worm tub condenser for Longrow. 50 quid. It's just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And to finish on what's rapidly becoming my darling distillery, there's nothing else to talk about. Even this wee humble 12-year-old Kilkerran, this black and white logo, when you see that on the shelf, whether it's the heavily peated, this wee 12-year-old, the 16-year-old, whatever you can get your hands on, know that this is a guarantee, this is a true guarantee of quality liquid. When whiskey is made this well, it's easy to recommend. It makes people like me redundant. The only reason that people like me exist is because there is shit whiskey out there. There is cynical whiskey out there. Because there is lazy whiskey out there. This and everything I've shared with you tonight, without exception tonight, interestingly, is none of that. None of it. Let's lighten things up and have a wee bit of fun with the quiz at the end. Drew from Arizona saying, I also think J-Bar on Dramface when I see that Kilkerran logo. Oh, it's J Bar's logo, the wee Kilkerran logo. Good to see you, Drew. It's nice to have you in. That double cask is a really good dram. Glad you're enjoying it, Danny. It's a much purer take. You know, I think if I've got a friend coming round and I was pouring a Glen Scotia, depending on who they were, I would maybe consider pouring the original Glen Scotia, the PX one. But if it was a whiskey geek pal that wanted a pure, spiritier, cleaner, sharper, dialed in take on Glen Scotia, rum casks aside, it would be that one that I would pour. Glad you're enjoying it, Danny. Graham Fraser saying, good evening, Barflies. Late to the party, back from a trip to England and an Ardnamurchan tasting tonight. Lots of people out on tastings tonight. It's been, hopefully, everybody's had good drams and enjoyed themselves. Justin Mann is saying, Noroi, the reason you exist is the community you build. Whiskey is just an excuse. Whiskey is everything, big guy. Whiskey is, it's amazing. We always put the people first. We always should put the people first. But the reason that we've come together is at whiskey's side. I'll never fail to be amazed by it all. Des is saying redundant. I'm maybe talking about, what's it, Aquavitae redundant? Yeah. If all whiskey was amazing, there would be nothing to talk about, right? Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, oh yeah, that Longrow is lovely. I don't have it, but instead my last bottle of the CV, non-statement Aquavitae, and at last, not least, one of the first 18-year-old batches. Wow. That CV has become something of a legend, buddy, and if you've got one of the first 18s, you need to run out now and buy one of the last, for the foreseeable at least. People, close second, says Jimmy Legg. No, people always come first, Jimmy. Justin Mann is saying, hey, start a board game live stream or whatever, and we'll still all be here. Yeah, that might be true now. But I wouldn't have been able to attract you in the first place. I'm grateful to Whiskey for that, and I'm grateful to you, Justin. Thanks very much, buddy. Okay, let's see if we can get the VPub quiz at the end. On the go, see how we're doing here. Let's get this up and get our quiz in. I have tried to be on theme and a bit kinder than our pal Menno, Lord Asshat himself, was last week. I did notice that Jeff, who did the pop-up VPub on Thursday last week, managed to go for 2 hours, 47 minutes. And then did the round table on Tuesday without a quiz at the end and ran for 2 hours, 53 minutes. Fantastic. It's not typical YouTube content. It's about relaxing. It's about having time. It's just savouring the whiskies, savouring community, being together, enjoying ourselves. It's fun. Seaweed World, Sherry Canary in Canada. So good to see you, saying a dram to celebrate my 45th anniversary with the same great guy, 51 years together. Sherry, I don't have enough hearts in my emoji stash to spell out to you and raise a glass to say congratulations. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. 51 years together, 45 anniversaries. Amazing. Amazing. Congratulations to you both. Let's all aspire to such a thing. Cheers. Congratulations. I hope, did my chat even go in? Maybe it didn't make it. It's blank. Some glitches. Let's try that again. There we go. Maybe it thought I was spamming last time. Okay, good luck with the quiz at the end, everyone. Let's get rid of that wee banner. We don't need that anymore. We've celebrated. Glengall's 20 years. We're now on to the quiz at the end. There's lots of other things I could have spoken about. I could have gone on and opened that wee cage bottle of the heavily peated. I could have shared some of the Hazelburn, the Longrow, some of the other warehouse bottles I brought back and things. But I think we've done an okay job and we've spent enough time. And at the end of the day, I want to share the whiskies that I'm excited about. I want to talk about the whiskies that I'm excited about. And I know that sometimes you can't easily get a hold of them. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be things that you should be looking out for when you are traveling or wherever you might find yourselves. Good luck. Only share the scores if you want to share the scores. Remember, it's multiple choice. It's only for fun. And even the tricky asshat questions are designed for you to hopefully be intrigued or for them to some way pique your curiosity to learn and discover a wee bit more. This is all just for fun. And it is specifically designed for you to get a 10 out of 10 should be, even if you're leaning on the community, even if you're following the crowd, should be something to truly celebrate. It is not an easy thing to do. However, I hope tonight is easier than Menno's from last week. Question 1. Which of these distilleries once upon a time produced malt whiskey in Campbeltown? A. Rechlachan, B. Glen, C. Springside. Now, I know you're thinking, oh my goodness, Roy. Some of you might know this right out the bat. You might feel safe with this one. So many of you are looking at this and thinking, what is this? You said it was going to be easy. Basically, what I'm doing here is giving you a list of 3 once upon a time Campbeltown distilleries. Nobody playing the VPub quiz at the end this week is going to go home on a donut. Kyle Taylor is spot on saying, but all. Absolutely. Rechlachan is a legitimate closed distillery, along with Glen and Springside. Remember those names for future VPub quiz questions, please. Question 2. What is the typical water source used for the Campbeltown distilleries? Where do they get their water from? Is it from A, a borehole under each distillery? Is it B, a nearby freshwater loch? Or is it C, desalinated seawater? "45 years married." Amazing. Amazing. Good stuff, everyone. Thanks to everyone who participates and hangs around for the quiz at the end. It's an on-topic one tonight. Where's Roy? Suggesting that it's B. Good to see you. Where's Roy? Sugar Kitty's in tonight, suggesting also that it's B. And so is Whiskey with Molly Ben. Jerry Miller, still here from the beginning. Rory Delgetti is joining us tonight. Good to see you, Rory. Hope you're keeping well. Hope things are going well at the Ensign Ure. I need to get back to Edinburgh sooner rather than later. Jimmy Legg is asking, wasn't I married at 9 years old? Jerry Miller is saying, and yet Sherry doesn't even look 45. That's right, Jerry. Absolutely. You're all spot on. Absolutely. Crosshill Loch is where Campbeltown distilleries get their water from. They all get their water from up the hill at Crosshill. Question 3. Which Glen is famous for its once upon a time vibrant Highland cow packaging? Which Glen is famous for the Highland cow vibrant packaging? A. Glengyle, B. Glenmorangie, C. Glen Scotia. Been kind to you tonight so far, am I not? Kyle Taylor on it again. Steve Atkiss, good to see you, Steve. Gabriel Wilding's here. Good to see you, Gabriel. My pal Hoyt Hemphill is in playing the quiz at the end. Fantastic. Jimmy Jazz is here too. Lassie Hort Otsman. I see so many people that at the end of the night, right, that have been probably missing all night. Ginger Genius bought me a dram saying, sod the quiz. It's the first time I've ever known anyone to open most of the festival bottlings. Quality, Roy. Listen, if you want me to open the rest of them as well, you know, that's because that's what it's there for. It's the beauty of these V35CL bottles too. I have a bottle of the Disco Q18. Andrew, of course you do. If anybody's going to have a Disco Q18, it's going to be you, fella. Fantastic. Good to see you, and Andrew, I hope you're doing well. Vasil Glagola is in. Good to see you, Vasil. He's the gorgeous Jimmy Jazz, says Jimmy Legg. Fantastic. He absolutely is. He absolutely is. Okay, we are talking Disco Coos, Glen, Scotia. I want everybody to see Andrew Butler's obviously got the 16-year-old. I think it was the 18 he said he had. There was a bright green 16-year-old, a iridescent blue 18-year-old, and a scarlet red 21-year-old. I mean, this was kind of it was really quite striking at the time. It was almost like a vinyl wrapped Scotch malt whiskey. But what a lot of people miss about this range is the shelf presence, and also the fact that it was one of the earliest releases to come out with non-chill filtered natural color 46% ABV and an age statement for everything that they released. And it was back at a time where 16 and 18 and 21-year-old malt, despite the shuttered years at Glen Scotia, was something that it could do. This can never be recreated. Some of these bottles tasted amazing. Other ones, just be careful of. Do your research. If you do pick them up, do your research. But if you look back on them now, they were quite seismic in what they brought. Question 4, everyone. Which of these statements are true? In the coming year, Glen Scotia will add another 2 stills. B. In the coming year, Springbank will turn 200 years old. C. In the coming year, Campbeltown could have 7 operational distilleries. Which of those statements is true? Hopefully you're all on 3 out of 3 so far. Quite comfortable. Greg's Whiskey Guide is talking about the Disco Cow Glen Scotia, saying, "Oh, Roy, that was a crap series in my humble opinion. Hated it. Sorry, Michael." Well, Michael Henry was nothing to do with it. Ian McAllister was nothing to do with those releases. I don't believe he was. The people at Glen Scotia now are doing things a bit differently, but some of those Disco Cow releases from Glen Scotia have an absolute cult following. Some of them would have been fantastic. Now, this is starting to split the crowd a wee bit, this one. Which of these statements are true? In the coming year, A, Glen Scotia will add another 2 stills. B, Springbank will turn 200 years old. Or C, Campbeltown could have 7 operational distilleries. Oh dear. Please look at the banana skin. Justin Wan is saying, gonna stick my neck out. A. Good man, Justin. Graham Fraser, always rock solid. A. Tobias, A. Jimmy Jazz, A. Bruno Martins, A. Hellswood, Philip Wagner. Gino Kumo, Danny Keenan, everybody going with A. Yes, there is banana skin here. Good stuff. I can tell you in the coming year, well, Springbank will turn 200 years old. In the years ahead. Campbeltown could have 7 operational distilleries in the years ahead. Even if everything goes ahead at a super fast rate, we're talking about 6 distilleries at best. By the end of next year, I don't know, Dalriata, Witchburn, Machrihanish, Glen Scotia will have added another two stills. Their expansion is going ahead starting this year, and they're trying to get up to, amazingly, 1.2 million litres of production. Still not massive, but much, much bigger when you consider that at some points they weren't making anything at all. 4 out of 4, well done, most of you. Well done, most of you here. Oh, Greg, you say no, okay, it was A then, 3 out of 4. Don't worry, Greg, hold on for a clear pass mark. I so look forward to Witchburn, says Mike Molasses. I just love the name, Witchburn. Well, they're going ahead as well, making progress. Question 5 is a picture question. It's on theme tonight, but I don't think it's going to help you too much. I'm going to give you a choice of course, 3 spots in the wee Toon. Is it A, the mash tun at Springbank? Is it B, the mash tun at Glengyle? Or C, the mash tun at Glen Scotia? What is that picture of? So this is actually taken from a video still I took when I was down there. I got to video it while it was happening. Not last week. a previous visit. Bruno's saying, looking forward to have more Glen Scotia liquid ahead, Aquavita. It's getting better and better and better all the time, Bruno. So good to see you, ever so briefly. What are we thinking here? That red pipe leads me to Springbank, says Jimmy Legg. The biggest cappuccino ever. It is a wee bit reminiscent of cappuccino. It's a big, massive pot of porridge. Very generous dramming from Gene Kelly tonight. Hoping to be able to attend the Glasgow Whisky Festival with my whisky buddies, Denny and Alec. Fantastic, Gene. I can't wait to welcome all three of you here. I guarantee you, where there's a will, there's a way. You will be here, my friend. Sláinte to you. Thank you for your generous dram. Cheers. What is that little cast iron tub next to this called, Aquaviti? I forget. Is that asking Jimmy Legg? Cast iron tub next to this? Okay, I can tell you all that you're absolutely spot on. It's an open mash tun, so it must be at Springbank. They have an open mash tun at Glen Scotia as well, but it's hooded. It's got like a canopy over it, and they've got a louter mash tun up at Glengyle. So this can only be Springbank. Good stuff. Now things start to get a wee bit trickier. At the peak of Campbeltown whisky, there were over 30 distilleries operational. But just how low has that number dropped to since? Campbeltown whisky production distilleries. Has it been as low as A, just 2, B, just 1, or C, 0? No operational distilleries in Campbeltown. A, 2 distilleries, B, 1 distillery, C, 0. How bad did it get? 5 out of 5 for the Ginger Genius. Danny Hebbington on 5 out of 5. Gino is on 5. Whiskey with Molly Ben on 5. Steve Atkiss. Raoul G. Good to see you, Raoul G. Danny Keenan. Tobias. Bruce. Nicholas. Philip. Gene Kelly. So many of you still on 5. Few people slipped up a wee bit potentially on that banana skin there. Fernando. Greg's Whiskey Guide. Keep it steady. Whiskey Weekend Dram is asking for clarification. If closed for a while is counting. Absolutely. I mean, given the fact that there's 3 open now, and all of them have produced in the past 12 been, even Glengyle was a previous distillery, of course, brought back to life. I'm going to suggest that they are making much better whiskey today than they ever did. Probably. Yes. Okay, some of you have been caught out by this, but there was a period in the 1980s that there was no whiskey production in Campbeltown whatsoever. Springbank came back on board for limited production. In 1989, it finally came back with full production, focused on single malts and not blend supply anymore. Fantastic decision. Inspirational, visionary decision. But there was a time in the 80s that there were no whiskies made in Campbeltown. Incredible to see what's happening now. 6 distilleries within the next 2 years, we'll probably see half a dozen distilleries down there. Question 7. How is Duncan McCallum linked to Glen Scotia Distillery? Duncan McCallum is associated with Glen Scotia in what way? A, his ghost is said to haunt the distillery. B, he was the founder and he named the distillery. C, he was the original project architect appointed way back in 1856. How is Duncan McCallum linked to Glen Scotia? His ghost is said to haunt the distillery. He is the founder and he named it, or he was the original project architect appointed in 1856. Hell's Wood is saying, whilst any detachment at RAF Machrihanish gutted, whilst any was, oh, okay. Well, there's good news at Machrihanish. Things are going ahead quickly there. There's a good chance that Machrihanish could be the first of the new distilleries to be up and running, actually, in Campbeltown. Just north of the town, just a wee bit out of the town. Greg's Whiskey Guide, he's saying, waiting for Graham's answer. Lol, that's amazing. Fantastic. Graham Fraser is too canny, though. He's holding off to the very, very end before he puts it in. Okay, I can tell you that Duncan McCallum is linked to Glen Scotia Distillery because he was once upon a time the owner. In the late 20s, he was the owner. But he ran into financial trouble. He got scammed. He lost all of his money and he committed suicide. And these days, his ghost is said to haunt Glen Scotia Distillery. There you go. It couldn't have been C because Glen Scotia is obviously 1832. The founder and named it. If he was the founder and he named it, he wouldn't have named it Glen Scotia because Glen Scotia is actually a name change. When it was founded, it was actually just called Scotia Distillery. So there you go. A is the right answer. Moving on to question 8. Which of these bottles would be highly suspicious if you were to see it for sale? I'm going to give you a list of 3 potential bottles. I need you to spot the fake. A 1999 organic Springbank. B, a 1995 vintage Hazelburn Oloroso finish. Or C, a Longrow 8-year-old 1997 to 2005 bottled Springbank Society bottling. Ginger Genius is saying, oh my God, I'm on a roll with a 7 out of 7. Fantastic. Keep it going. I've only got 3 more to take it home. Mike Molasses is celebrating as well. Good stuff. Sugar Kitty, Graham Fraser, Danny Hebbington, Danny Keenan, Steve Atkins, Tobias, Philip Wagner, Jerry Miller, Andrew Butler, Bruno Martins, Hellswood. So many good scores. Raoul, Bruce, Gino, Andrew. Fantastic. All on 7 out of 7. What's the fake bottle here? A 1999 Organic Springer, a 1995 Hazelburn Oloroso finish, or a Longrow Springbank Society bottling, 8-year-old, bottled in 2005 with a 1997 vintage. Steve Atkins is saying, I'm going B, no idea why. Nice one, Steve. Okay, the crowd seemed to be fully committed to B for a 1995 Hazelburn Oloroso. Why? Well, 1999 Organic Springbank. Yeah, the DeVille, it's appeared on a VPub in the past. It's now sold out on their website, but it took a long time to sell. £550 if you wanted to pleasure. It did exist, 1999 Organic Springbank, said to be the first fully organic single malt. Longrow 8-year-old, 1997 to 2005, one of the very, very first, if not the first, Springbank Society bottling. 1995 Hazelburn Oloroso. Why does it not exist? Well, they didn't start making triple distilled Hazelburn until 1997. So if you see a 1995 vintage, you would be, of course, very suspicious. Terrific stuff. Second from last, wee bit of asshattery going on here, but it's got to be a challenge to get a 10 out of 10. In which year did we first see the iconic Kilkerran branding on a wide-scale release bottle? So for people listening to this podcast style, I'm showing the very typical, the barred window in the wall with the ivy over the top of it. You can see the church, the Lornan Lowland Church, is it? The parish church, the steeple. That's the black and white branding I'm speaking about. When did that first appear on a wide-scale Kilkerran release bottle? Was it in A, 2009, B, 2012, or C, 2016? When did that branding first appear? A, 2009, B, 2012, C, 2016. Oh, these whiskies are... Define wide scale, says Whiskey with Molly. Well, if it was a single cask for a very specific event and it wasn't on sale to the general public, then that's not wide scale. It had to be something that made it on sale to the general public. Something that anyone could buy. Wow. The ass hattery and the banana skins swing in at the end. Who's on a full score right up close to the end? Hellswood, Raoul Still, Chris Pollack, good to see Chris, Philip Wagner, Andrew Butler, Where's Roy, Danny Keenan, Bruce Bernard is on an 8/8 as well, Tobias, Danny Heventon, Mike Molasses celebrating Yeehaw, he's saying, Graham Fraser, of course Graham's superb, Graham Sugar Kitty, Oliver and Whiskey Veritas, Whiskey with Molly Ben, Glen B, Gino, Andrew Pears, Bruno Martins, The Ginger Genius, Jimmy Jazz. Look, we're in good shape for a 10 out of 10 tonight, surely. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, so basically it means the 12-year-old, right? And then Raoul is saying 12-year-old, not the work in progress. Reminds me of the Monopoly jail. It really, really does, Bruce. It does look like the Monopoly jail. It really does. Okay, the banana skin has swung into play. This is going to take a lot of you out. Jerry Miller, Harrow, Whiskey Weekend Dram. My goodness, not so many of you. Chris Pollack, all got it correct. 2009. It first appeared on the very first work in progress Kilkerran release in 2009. There was a private cask release that appeared before that, but I think it was, I don't know, from some kind of blood tub or quarter cask or something. It was a tiny cask bottling. So this was first put on public sale with this branding way back in 2009. Greg's quite right. The 12-year-old had this branding and it appeared in 2016. That's going to have scuppered a lot of people. This branding has been out there for 15 years. Now we roll into the ass hat at the end. Is there anybody still on a 9 out of 9, or did that wipe out everyone? I think it probably wiped out. Andrew is on a 9 out of 9. Fantastic. Jerry Miller somehow still holding it together on a 9 out of 9. Fantastic, Jerry. Good stuff. Chris Pollack, 9 out of 9. Terrific, Chris. Okay, we've got a chance here because I suspect the ass hat is not as brutal as it tends to be. Question 10. The combined capacity of all three current Campbeltown distilleries, according to the 2024, the latest edition of the Malt Whisky Yearbook, is about the same as what? If you combined the malt, not what they actually make, but the malt whisky quoted capacities, the Malt Whisky Yearbook quoted capacities of all three Campbeltown distilleries, it would be about the same as A, Ben Nevis Distillery in the Highlands, B, Lagavulin Distillery on Islay, or C, Brooklandy Distillery, also on Islay. Come on. Take the quoted capacity of all three Campbeltown distilleries. Put your malt whisky yearbooks down. Stop panicking and thumbing through the questions, thumbing through the pages. Just go with your gut. Go with it. Make it something that if you were to win this question tonight, if you were to get it right, it could be something that you celebrate. Come on. Combined capacity of all three Campbeltown distilleries. Is it the same as Ben Nevis, Lagavulin, or Brooklandy? Steve Atkins, C, gut feeling. Fernando between B and C. Jimmy like B, I think. Vassal is saying B. Graham Fraser, B. Danny Heventon, B. Mikey Hayes saying A. Nicholas is saying A. Whiskey with Molly saying A. Tom Elmer is saying A. Ginger Genius is also saying A. Des is saying, I'm gutted already. Apologies, Des. I hope you've still had fun with it. Whiskey with Molly saying it must be B. I can tell you that the combined capacity of all three Campbeltown distilleries is very close to exactly 2 million litres LPA per annum. Lagavulin has 3 million litres per annum. Bruichladdich has 2 million litres per annum. Ben Nevis also has 2 million litres per annum. So I was trying to be kind and give you a huge chance of scoring a 10 out of 10 tonight by making it a 66% chance of getting it right at the asshat at the end, even if you were simply guessing. Did anyone manage to keep that going? So I got this wrong twice, says Mike. Oh no. Bruno Martins is on 9. Graham Fraser is on 9. Happy with that, though. He's celebrating his 9. So you should, Graham. Amazing. Bruno Martins on a 9. Fantastic. Gino on an 8. Kyle on a 7. Best ass hat ever. Very straightforward, Mikey. Back to the ass hats of old, right? The ways that we used to do it. Usually a capacity question they were as well. Andrew Butler is saying, hooray, 10. Andrew Butler gets his 10. Let's congratulate Andrew. Amazing. And Chris Polak got a 10 out of 10 as well, celebrating woohoo. Amazing you managed to do it towards the end. I think we've only got two 10 out of 10s tonight then, Chris and Andrew. Congrats to the 10, says Gino. Fantastic. Fantastic. Have I gone 3 hours yet? No, I'm going to have to try and finish in less time than the VPub of last week. This is the succinct VPub. All of a sudden, it's not been succinct at all tonight. It's been anything but. Felt even a wee bit rusty, but I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it hanging out with you. But I've especially enjoyed these amazing whiskies tonight. Just what I needed after being exhausted with whiskey, then coming away for a wee while, having a break, and coming back again, coming back into the VPub and sitting with whiskies like this. What an amazing thing to do, to be able to open these really, really super delicious, tasty, interesting, fantastic, privileged whiskies, privileged reminders of what it is to be alive, right? A late dram and a generous dram in from Danny Hebbington as well, saying, well done, the 10 out of 10s, and thank you, Roy, for another great evening. Danny, if it was a great evening for you, you've no idea how cool it was for me tonight. Quite incredible. You know what I'm going to pour after the credits roll tonight, but aye. Amazing stuff. Having a Kilkerran 8 2024 to celebrate, says Chris Pollack. You deserve it too, Chris. Amazing 10 out of 10 tonight for you. Great VPub Aquavite, great bottles. I've run out of saliva. Slant you. Amazing days. Thank you so much. And I appreciate what it must be like for you to kind of just try and vicariously enjoy some of the things I've shared. But some of the things I've shared with you tonight, in fact, all of the Glen Scotias, maybe, I hope, all of them. The Sponge one, the Glen Scotia Festival edition, certainly in the future, the wee Broon Electric Coup should become available. I don't know in what markets. Glen Scotia's widespread sponge bottle. I don't know. It ships fairly widely, I think. But I appreciate that some of the 35cl bottles, the reason that they are 35cl bottles is because it's so hard to ration them out. I feel so privileged, so happy to have got my hands on some of them tonight. Jimmy Legg bought me a super generous dram as well. Save me some of the Campbeltown, okay, Jimmy. I can't promise that these are all going to make it across till remember, save the date, 28th of September. We're having another amazing event in Glasgow. I'm looking forward to it as well. It's going to be very informal, very laid back, but it looks like Jimmy Legg will be coming back over again. We're not going to call it Legfest this time, but because I haven't come up with a better name, it seems like we might end up having to call it Legfest. It's just going to be the way that it ends up being. But Legfest 2.0 is happening in 28th of September in Glasgow this year. We'll get together, we'll have a nice dinner, and we'll all meet up in the Bon Accord for a gathering, and 1 or 2 donated bottles as well. Can't I wait for that. In the meantime, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to look forward to welcoming you back here for another VPub next week on Thursday night. but raise this glass of absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous Campbeltown whiskey. This beautiful Kilkerran. That's the Springbank. This must be it. This must be the. I think I drained the other one, didn't I? This is the 19-year-old. I'll raise this beautiful Kilkerran and remind you all that you're very dearly loved and that I look forward to hanging out with you again next week. But until then, all the very best. Sláinte mhath.